Chapter 44-33. In the restaurant. In the hall. Qin Feiyang and the other three were sitting around the table. As soon as the waiter of the restaurant brought the food and wine, a young man in luxurious clothes rushed in. "Isn't this the young city lord of our Green Wind City?" Everyone was surprised. The young city lord had a noble status. Why would he come to such a small restaurant? This restaurant was indeed very small. There were only a dozen tables in the hall, and it was very shabby. The only gratifying thing was that although the place was small, it was very clean. The young man in luxurious clothes glanced at the people in the hall, and his eyes were directly locked on the Sea Lion Demon King. He then walked to the side of the Sea Lion Demon King and bowed. "Greetings, Lord Demon King." "So he's here for the Demon King." Everyone murmured. "You are." The Sea Lion Demon King turned his head and looked at the young man in luxurious clothes suspiciously. The young man in luxurious clothes said, "Lord Demon King, this junior is Ji Xiao, the young city lord of Green Wind City." Ji Xiao? Qin Feiyang and the other two were taken aback. How could there be a different surname in the Central Dynasty? Shouldn't the people here all have the surname Dong? However, the Sea Lion Demon King seemed to be used to it and asked faintly, "What's the matter?" "I received a message from the guard saying that Lord Demon King has entered my Green Wind City. So Lord Father immediately asked this junior to come and invite you to his mansion." Ji Xiao smiled. The Sea Lion Demon King was taken aback and asked suspiciously, "What do you mean? Why did he invite him to the city Lord Mansion when he was not related to him?" "Lord, don't misunderstand. Lord Father just wants to be a good host," Ji Xiao said. "So he's here to curry favor with me." The Sea Lion Demon King smiled secretly, looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two, and asked, "What do you think? Since he has personally invited us, how can we refuse? But I don't think the father and son want to be a good host." Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. "Huh." The Sea Lion Demon King was surprised. "Look carefully. There's a trace of worry between his eyebrows," Qin Feiyang said. When the Sea Lion Demon King heard this, he looked up at Ji Xiao. Seeing the Sea Lion Monster King look over, Ji Xiao immediately put on a flattering smile. But even so, he was unable to conceal the worry between his eyebrows. "That's true," the Sea Lion Demon King mumbled. He hadn't noticed it before. "You're not thinking of harming us, are you?" Suddenly, his pupils shrank. "Against us?" Qin Feiyang, the lunatic, and the white-eyed wolf were all speechless. "You are a Demon King. How dare a mere city lord harm you? Wasn't he just digging his own grave?" "Ha!" The Sea Lion Demon King laughed inwardly. He looked at the young man and said, "All right, I happen to be free anyway. I'll go with you to the city lord's mansion." "Thank you, Lord Demon King." Ji Xiao's face was filled with joy. He hurriedly took out several hundred divine crystals, looked at the clerk next to him, and asked, "Are these enough to pay the bill?" "Enough, enough, enough." The shop assistant nodded repeatedly and stepped forward to receive the divine crystals. "Lord Demon King, please." Ji Xiao retreated to the side, his expression extremely respectful. The Sea Lion Demon King got up and swaggered out of the restaurant. Qin Feiyang and the other two followed closely behind. Ji Xiao caught up and looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang and the other two. He asked curiously, "Lord Demon King, these three lords are—" "They are my subordinates, the future Demon King," the Sea Lion Demon King said indifferently. "The future Demon King." Ji Xiao was shocked. For the Sea Lion Demon King to say such words, it could be seen that the strength and status of these three people were. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Junior greets the three lords." Qin Feiyang and the other two nodded indifferently. After a while, a huge mansion entered their line of sight. The mansion was located in the central area of the city. The tall walls of the courtyard and the imposing buildings were all out of the ordinary. Outside the door, a group of guards stood upright, holding sharp blades in their hands. Their eyes were cold and their bodies exuded a murderous aura. Right above the door, there were 3 large words written in iron hook silver: City Lord's Mansion. Greetings, young City Lord. The group of guards saw Ji Xiaowu coming and bowed to salute. Thank you for your hard work. Ji Xiaowu smiled slightly, pointed to the Sea Lion Demon King, and said, This is the Senior Demon King from the Kunping Sea region. The 3 beside Senior are also the future Demon Kings of the Kunping Sea region. Greetings to the 4 lords. The group of guards heard this and bowed respectfully. The Sea Lion Demon King nodded. Senior, please. Ji Xiaowu pointed to the door. The Sea Lion Demon King looked up at the door of the City Lord's Mansion and stepped forward, leading Qin Feiyang and the other 2 into the City Lord's Mansion. It was worth noting that, before entering the City Lord's Mansion, Qin Feiyang looked at the group of guards outside the door, and a trace of suspicion flashed in his eyes. What's going on? Why is the security so tight? Generally speaking, in a place like the City Lord's Mansion, there were usually 3 or 4 guards guarding the door at most. But now, there were dozens of guards here. Moreover, after entering the City Lord's Mansion, he found that inside the mansion there was also a guard every 3 steps and a sentry every 7 steps. It was as if they were facing a great enemy. For lords, this way please. After passing through 3 corridors and 2 gardens, they finally arrived at their destination. In front of them was a magnificent hall. A group of people stood in front of the hall, waiting for them. The leader was a middle-aged man, wearing a gorgeous robe, with a square face, a rather burly figure, and a domineering aura all over his body. The other 10 people were a group of old people, men and women, and the aura they exuded was quite extraordinary. Similarly, there seemed to be a trace of worry between these people's eyebrows. Lord Demon King. Seeing Qin Feiyang and the other 3 coming over, the square-faced man immediately greeted them with a smile. You are. The Sea Lion Demon King stopped and looked at the square-faced man suspiciously. Senior, he is Junior's father, Ji Daxiong. The others are also the consecrators of my city, Lord's Mansion. Ji Xiaowu hurriedly stepped forward and introduced them one by one. Consecrators? Qin Feiyang and the other 2 were taken aback. Why was this popular in the Central Dynasty? So it's the City Lord. I've heard a lot about you. The Sea Lion Demon King nodded and looked at Ji Daxiong with a smile. I wouldn't dare. Ji Daxiong hurriedly waved his hand, turned around, and retreated to the side with a smile. The banquet has been prepared, Lord. Please come in. The banquet has been prepared. The Sea Lion Demon King looked inside the hall and joked. It seems that you are sure that I will come to your city, Lord's Mansion. No, I'm just prepared. Ji Daxiong smiled. Haha. The Sea Lion Demon King laughed and led Qin Feiyang and the other 2 into the hall. Ji Daxiong looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 2 suspiciously and said, Xiaowu, who are the 3 people behind the Demon King? They are the Demon King's subordinates, and this Demon King said that these 3 people are the future Demon King. Ji Xiaowu thought, Future Demon King. Ji Daxiong and the 10 consecrators looked at each other. A trace of shock appeared in their eyes, and then they hurriedly followed into the hall. Inside the hall, the decorations were luxurious. There were all kinds of rare treasures. Even the dining table and chairs were made of rare jade. On the table, there were all kinds of delicacies. The white-eyed wolf and Frenzy sniffed and immediately stared at the wine jugs on the table, their eyes shining. With their many years of experience in drinking, as long as they smelled the wine, they could tell that these wine jugs were filled with divine wine. So sumptuous? Don't tell me it's a Hongmen banquet. The Sea Lion Demon King laughed. Lord Demon King really knows how to joke. Ji Daxiong shook his head, walked to the side, pointed to the main seat, and said with a smile, "Lord, please sit." Seeing that it was the main seat, the Sea Lion Demon King waved his hand and said, "I don't dare to overshadow the host." After saying that, he walked to a chair and sat down. Qin Feiyang and the other two sat on the left and right sides of the Sea Lion Demon King. Ji Daxiong was stunned. He didn't expect this Demon King to be so particular. Generally speaking, existences like the Demon King would definitely sit on the main seat no matter where they went. After all, this was a world where strength was respected. If you were weak, even if you were the master of the house, you would have to give way. When he came back to his senses, Ji Daxiong sat on the main seat and called the 10 consecrators to sit. Then he looked at Ji Xiaowu and said with a smile, "Xiaowu, hurry up and pour wine for Lord Demon King." "Okay." Ji Xiaowu nodded, picked up a wine jug, ran to the Sea Lion Demon King, and poured a cup of divine wine. He then ran in front of Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang reached out and covered the wine cup, shook his head and said, "I don't need it." "No need?" Ji Xiaowu was stunned. Ji Daxiong also quickly looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Does Lord dislike this wine?" "How is he disliking it? He doesn't like to drink." "Don't force him." The madman and the white-eyed wolf grinned. They each took a wine jug and began to drink with their heads tilted back. "So he doesn't like to drink. You really scared me. I thought Lord didn't like this wine." Ji Daxiong shook his head and smiled. The 10 consecrators next to him also smiled apologetically. "Not bad." The white-eyed wolf nodded, turned his head to look at Ji Xiaowu and laughed. "Another jug." "It's finished?" Ji Xiaowu was stunned. "It was finished in the blink of an eye. That was too fast." "Just this? It's not enough to fill the gaps between my teeth." The white-eyed wolf smiled proudly. Ji Xiaowu came back to his senses and smiled bitterly. Senior is really good at drinking. With that, he ran directly to the side hall of the main hall, carried a dozen jugs of divine wine, and placed them beside the white-eyed wolf. "That's more like it." The white-eyed wolf nodded with a face full of smiles. Just the wine in the jug was not enough to quench his thirst for wine. Seeing the white-eyed wolf drinking so happily, Ji Daxiong and the 10 consecrators looked at each other, a smile creeping onto their faces. They were afraid that they would not treat him well. After 3 rounds of wine, Qin Feiyang put down the chopsticks in his hand, looked up at Ji Daxiong and said lightly, "I see that the city lord is feeling quite uncomfortable holding it in. Why don't you just say it?" "Ah." Ji Daxiong looked at Qin Feiyang. The 10 consecrators also looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. This person's perception was too strong. He could see that they had something on their minds. Frenzy drank as he said, "Don't treat us as fools. Before we came to the city lord's mansion, we already knew that you should have something to ask us." The group couldn't help but look at Frenzy. Before entering the city lord's mansion, he already knew. His observation skills were truly terrifying. Chapter 44-34. The Sea Lion Demon King also put down his chopsticks and said indifferently, "Speak, don't waste everyone's time." "Okay." Ji Daxiong nodded and immediately put down his bowl and chopsticks. Looking at Qin Feiyang and the others, he stood up and said respectfully, "This time, I invited the 4 of you here because I have a request. See, there is indeed no free lunch in the world." The white-eyed wolf sneered. The Sea Lion Demon King's eyes also flickered with a cold light. "Sir, please calm down. I really didn't mean to deceive you, but this matter is too important. I don't have full confidence, so I thought of using this method to get close to the 4 of you." Ji Daxiong hurriedly explained. What important matter? This time, it aroused the curiosity of Qin Feiyang and the others. Ji Daxiong said, "It concerns the future fate of the City Lord Mansion." "So serious? Is someone coming to kill you?" The white-eyed wolf was suspicious. No, but it's almost the same. There is a family that wants to annex our Green Wind City and make us work for them. We definitely don't want to. Because in this way, the resources of our Green Wind City will be given to them. Ji Daxiong sighed. Annexation. Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. This kind of thing is very common. For example, the 10 great direct descendant clans. Although their headquarters are in the 10 great super cities, there are still many cities outside that depend on them. The Sea Lion Demon King transmitted his voice. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang and the others suddenly understood. This Green Wind City is just a small city. The 10 families naturally don't like it, but it doesn't mean that other families don't like it. Moreover, in order to seize control of these cities, the major families often fight openly and secretly. The Sea Lion Demon King said again, "Aren't we all family? Is there a need to fight over it?" Madman was speechless. So what if we are family? Look at Great Qin. Those princes who died in the past were all brothers with little Qinzi. What happened in the end? For a bit of selfishness and ambition, they made use of each other and killed each other. Who cares about kinship? Even the small Qin clan is like this, let alone such a big Dong clan. White-eyed Wolf thought to himself. He had seen too many of such incidents, and he was already numb to them. Qin Feiyang looked up at Ji Daxiong and asked suspiciously, "Who wants to annex you?" Dong Tianxiang, the head of a branch family. Ji Daxiong said, his eyes filled with hatred. Collateral family? Dong Tianxiang. Never heard of him, right? He shouldn't be a big shot. The white-eyed wolf pouted. Ah, you don't even know Dong Tianxiang. Ji Daxiong was stunned. What do you mean? Is he very powerful? The white-eyed wolf was suspicious. Ugh! Ji Daxiong looked at the white-eyed wolf in astonishment. Then he patted his head and smiled. You four were in the Kuan Peng Sea area before. It's not strange that you don't know. Isn't it just a collateral family? You are actually afraid of them. This is really an eye-opener. We are not interested in a mere collateral family. The white-eyed wolf shook his head. If it was a direct family or a direct family, they might be interested. Hearing this, Ji Daxiong, Ji Xiaowu, and the 10 consecrators could not help but feel anxious. Don't say any more. If you say any more, I will be angry. Don't disturb me from drinking. The white-eyed wolf waited for the group of people, looking at the resolute white-eyed wolf. The group of people suddenly fell into deep despair. Suddenly, plop! Ji Xiaowu actually knelt on the ground and begged, "Sirs, I beg you, please help us. We are truly at the end of our rope." Xiaowu. Ji Daxiong looked at his son in shock. Of course, he knew his son the best. Although his talent was not very good, he was born a very competitive person and would never kneel to others easily. Lord Father, we have no other choice. Ji Xiaowu sighed and looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 3. We have already given up struggling, but previously we suddenly heard that a monster king had entered our Green Wind City, so we shamelessly went to find you. Junior knows that this is a bit presumptuous, but we are really desperate. I hope that the 4 seniors will help us. Junior will kowtow to you. Ji Xiaowu exclaimed, and then kowtowed one after another. Soon his forehead was badly mutilated and blood flowed all over the ground. Looking at this scene, Ji Daxiong's heart ached. Plop! Suddenly, he also knelt on the ground and looked at the 4 of them. I beg the 4 lords, please help us. Madman frowned. Why don't you go find other families to help you? Who can we find? For this kind of thing, even if we go find the emperor, it will be useless. Ji Daxiong sighed. What's the situation? The white-eyed wolf looked at the Sea Lion Demon King in surprise. This kind of territorial dispute is too common in the Central Dynasty. As long as it doesn't get to the point where people are in a terrible situation and blood flows like a river, the emperor will not care. In other words, The emperor acquiesces to this kind of thing. Those who encounter this kind of thing can only rely on themselves. The sea lion demon, king, transmitted his voice. So that's how it is. The white-eyed wolf suddenly understood. It seemed that the living environment of the central dynasty was also quite cruel. Then, the white-eyed wolf looked at Ji Xiaowu and said with a cold face, "Stop kowtowing a grown man, don't you feel ashamed?" But then again, this Ji Xiaowu was still considered responsible. For his family, for the city lord's mansion, he was able to bow and submit. "Lord, I beg you!" Ji Xiaowu turned a deaf ear. Not only did he not stop, but he also used more and more strength. All right. Get up first. Let's ask about the situation first." The white-eyed wolf waved his hand helplessly. "Thank you, Lord." Although he did not explicitly agree, as long as there was room for negotiation, there was still hope. "Is this Dong Tianxiang very strong?" The white-eyed wolf frowned. "Not strong. He has only mastered 2 ultimate mysteries of the strongest law." Ji Xiaowu got up and shook his head. "What? 2 ultimate mysteries of the strongest law?" The white-eyed wolf was stunned, turning his head to look at Ji Daxiong and the 10 consecrators, frowning. "I think your strength should not be weak. Can't you deal with such a small character?" "Of course, it's easy to deal with Dong Tianxiang, but we can't touch the person behind Dong Tianxiang." Ji Daxiong sighed. "The person behind?" The white-eyed wolf was slightly taken aback and said disdainfully, "What kind of backer can a patriarch of a side family have?" "Yes, and his backer is not ordinary. Dong Tianxiang's backer is one of the 5 unparalleled geniuses of our central dynasty, Dong Hanzong," Ji Daxiong said in a deep voice. Dong Hanzong. Qin Feiyan and the other 2 suddenly stood up, their eyes shining. They really did not expect it to be Dong Hanzong. "You know Dong Hanzong too?" the Sea Lion King secretly asked. "Nonsense. Dong Hanzong has been to the 4 great continents and fought with us. How can we not know?" Frenzy rolled his eyes. The Sea Lion Demon King smiled awkwardly. Looking at the reaction of Qin Feiyan and the other 2, Ji Daxiong carefully asked, "The 4 of you, are you afraid of Dong Hanzong?" "Nonsense. Dong Hanzong is ranked first among the 5 unparalleled geniuses, and he has mastered the Qian Kuan domain, not to mention a monster king like me. Even Lord Kuanping has to be wary of him." The Sea Lion King's face was solemn. This was not a joke. He was indeed frightened. As a monster king, how could he not know Dong Hanzong's strength? It was not an exaggeration to say that he was invincible. Ji Daxiong heard this and smiled bitterly. Sure enough, even a monster king did not dare to go against Dong Hanzong. So what if he is Dong Hanzong? The white-eyed wolf sneered and looked at Ji Daxiong. "We will help you." What? Ji Daxiong, Ji Xiaowu, and the 10 consecrators looked at the white-eyed wolf in disbelief. The Sea Lion King was also shocked. What was wrong with this golden-winged wolf king? Wasn't he not interested before? Why did he become so full of fighting spirit when he heard that it was Dong Hanzong? Let me tell you, if it wasn't Dong Hanzong, I really wouldn't be interested. But since it is Dong Hanzong, I must play with him. The white-eyed wolf laughed secretly. But his strength, we really can't afford to offend him. The Sea Lion King was worried. Useless. The white-eyed wolf looked at Ji Daxiong with disdain and said, "You didn't hear wrong. We have decided to help you." The group of people looked at each other and were overjoyed. They bowed and said, "Thank you for lords." Cough, cough. The Sea Lion King coughed and braced himself. "You're welcome, you're welcome." In fact, he wanted to cry in his heart. Of all the people to provoke, why did he have to provoke Dong Hanzong? Wasn't this just courting death? Madman asked. "Who is Dong Tianxiang to Dong Hanzong?" "Second uncle." Dong Hanzong's parents died early. As for how they died, I don't know, but it seems that someone was jealous of Dong Hanzong's talent and was killed. Therefore, Dong Tianxiang can be considered Dong Hanzong's only relative in this world. Because of this, Dong Hanzong trusts Dong Tianxiang very much. In the past, Dong Tianxiang was just a small figure at the bottom who had difficulty surviving, but because of the rise of Dong Hanzong, he also turned over a new leaf. Over the years, Dong Tianxiang relied on Dong Hanzong to constantly expand the family's power. Now, they have already set up 100 cities under their control. Although these cities are basically small cities that can't be underestimated when combined. Ji Daxiong said, Dong Hanzong's talent and talent? Are you kidding me? What talent and talent can he have? The white-eyed wolf's face was full of contempt. Ji Daxiong was stunned. Ji Xiaowu and the 10 consecrators also looked at the white-eyed wolf in astonishment. Even the Sea Lion King was the same. At such a young age, he had already grasped the will of the heavens and had the Qinkuan domain. He was ranked first among the 5 unparalleled geniuses, and even the emperor looked at him in a different light. Furthermore, he was Dong Qingyuan's disciple. If Dong Hanzong didn't have it, then who did? Patriarch. Why do I feel that they are a little unreliable? One of the consecrators came back to his senses and transmitted his voice. I think so too. Ji Daxiong smiled bitterly. They seemed to regret asking Qin Feiyang and the others for help. End of chapter. Chapter 44-35. Are you doubting our ability? The white-eyed wolf glanced at the group of people. No. Ji Daxiong hurriedly waved his hand. It was better to have help than nothing. A group of ignorant scum. The white-eyed wolf had a look of disdain. Now he finally understood why the city lord's mansion was so heavily guarded, being targeted by Dong Hanzong's people who wouldn't be nervous. But this time, Dong Hanzong's family had kicked an iron plate. Central dynasty, no. Looking at the entire divine kingdom, there might be no one who wasn't afraid of Dong Hanzong. But Qin Feiyang and the other 2 were undoubtedly 3 exceptions. Boom! At this moment, a powerful aura suddenly descended above the city lord's mansion. Sensing this aura, Ji Daxiong and the others couldn't help but tremble. Moreover, the guards of the city lord's mansion also immediately looked up at the sky, a cold light flashing in their eyes. What's wrong? The madman and the white-eyed wolf looked at Ji Daxiong and the others suspiciously. This person is Dong Tianxiang. Ji Daxiong said with a trembling voice. Look at you. The madman had a look of disdain as he looked outside and laughed. What a coincidence! Not at all, because 3 days ago he already came. At that time he said that he would give us 3 days to consider. Now is the agreed time. Ji Xiaowu said in a deep voice. So it's like this. Let him in. The madman suddenly smiled and said lightly. Ji Xiaowu looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 2 and the Sea Lion Demon King with a trace of suspicion in his eyes. What's going on? Aren't these 3 people the subordinates of the Sea Lion Demon King? Now even the Sea Lion Demon King was a little nervous. Why did these 3 people have such a fearless look? Go quickly. Do you want us to go out and meet him personally? He doesn't have that much face. The white-eyed wolf stared at Ji Xiaowu. All right. Ji Xiaowu nodded, took a deep breath, got up and walked out of the door. Ji Daxiong and the 10 consecrators also prepared to get up. All of you sit down for me. How can a dignified city lord and a consecrator personally welcome a small patriarch? Madman snorted. The 11 of them looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Now, they were really worried. When the time came, not only would the 4 of them fail to help, but they would also arouse Dong Tianxiang's killing intent. In the sky, a black-clothed man stood facing the wind. He was about 8 meters tall and had a sturdy body. He had a head full of thick black hair and his dark eyes flickered with an astonishing amount of hostility. No one came out to greet me. This person was none other than Dong Tianxiang. Behind Dong Tianxiang, there were 3 tall and sturdy men. They were all more than 2 meters tall, like 3 small giants. Their bodies exuded a valiant aura. They are being disrespectful to you. Let's go down and teach them a lesson. The 3 burly men were filled with killing intent. All right, be gentle. After all, we still need them to work for us. Dong Tianxiang sneered in an overbearing manner. Understood. The 3 of them nodded and prepared to rush down. But at this moment, Ji Xiao ran out and landed in front of the 4 people. He bowed and said, "Greetings for seniors. Are you the only one who came out? Where's your father?" Dong Tianxiang frowned. Ji Xiao said, "Father is waiting for the 4 of you in the main hall." Be it his attitude or tone, he was rather polite. However, when he heard that Ji Daxiong was in the main hall and did not come out to greet them, but sent a junior instead, Dong Tianxiang was filled with hostility and slapped Ji Xiao's face. Ji Xiao shrieked and was sent flying like a meteor. His face was lacerated and fresh blood flowed. Young city lord, the guards below were enraged when they saw that. "Don't move." Ji Xiao roared and stabilized his body. He looked at Dong Tianxiang and said, "Please take a seat in the hall, sir." Dong Tianxiang glanced at Ji Xiao and harumphed through his nose, saying proudly, "Is your father that important? Get him to come out and meet me personally. Don't go overboard." Ji Xiao suppressed his voice and said in a deep voice, "Overboard? Trash like you guys? I'm already giving you guys enough face by coming here personally." Dong Tianxiang sneered. "Trash like us?" Ji Xiao stared at Dong Tianxiang gloomily, and his entire body was trembling. He was obviously on the verge of exploding. Phew! But in the end, he let out a long sigh, turned around, and flew down. "Family head, we can't let Ji Xiao live." One of the burly men looked at Ji Xiao's back and said in a low voice, "Why?" Dong Tianxiang was suspicious. He knows how to endure at such a young age. This shows how terrifying his temperament is. Such a person will definitely be a disaster in the future. The burly man said, "Makes sense." Dong Tianxiang nodded and looked at Ji Xiao with a murderous look in his eyes. "So important. You can't even invite the young city lord in? Since you can't invite him out, you guys can just stand outside." Not long after Ji Xiao returned to the main hall, the white-eyed wolf's voice came from inside. Dong Tianxiang and the 3 burly men were stunned. This voice was so unfamiliar. Could it be that Ji Daxiong had found reinforcements? Dong Tianxiang's eyes flashed, and he sneered, "I'd like to see who dares to go against us now." After that, he landed in front of the main hall with the 3 burly men and looked inside. Immediately, he saw Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, the madman, and the sea lion demon king. He even called in 4 reinforcements. However, they're all so unfamiliar. I have no impression of them at all. They're definitely not from the direct family. Dong Tianxiang murmured, because he knew a little about the people from the direct family. "Ji Daxiong, I was wondering why you didn't come to greet me in person. It turns out that you've found a backer and become confident." Dong Tianxiang swaggered into the main hall with his hands behind his back as if it was his own home. He pushed Ji Daxiong aside and sat directly on the main seat. The 3 burly men stood behind Dong Tianxiang and sneered at Ji Daxiong and the group of consecrators. Dong Tianxiang's attitude made Ji Daxiong and the group of consecrators furious to the extreme. He simply didn't put them in his eyes. "It's really annoying." The sea lion demon king murmured. He, the demon king, didn't even sit on the main seat. How could a person who had mastered 2 ultimate mysteries be so arrogant? At the same time, Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf looked at Dong Tianxiang, who was acting like a tyrant, and looked a little stunned. Was he so arrogant? He directly pushed Ji Daxiong aside and sat on the main seat. Are you the reinforcements that Ji Daxiong found? Not bad. Good wine and good food. It seems that Ji Daxiong is very confident in you. Dong Tianxiang looked at Qin Feiyang and the other three and laughed. And then what do you want to say? The white-eyed wolf drank a mouthful of divine wine and looked at him playfully. Do you still need to ask? I know what he wants to say. He definitely wants to say, have you inquired about my background? My nephew is Dong Hanzong, the head of the 5 unparalleled geniuses of the Central Dynasty. Since you dare to go against me, my nephew Dong Hanzong will not let you go. So I advise you to be sensible and get out of here as soon as possible. The madman laughed. You're so smart that you even know what others are thinking? The white-eyed wolf looked at the madman. Isn't this the mentality of people like him? Relying on someone behind him to intimidate others. In fact, he is trash. The madman laughed. Ha ha! The white-eyed wolf raised his head and laughed. Ji Xiaowu, Ji Daxiong, and the group of consecrators also couldn't help but want to laugh. The two echoed each other, and it was really pleasant to listen to. The Sea Lion Demon King couldn't help but feel melancholy in his heart. This time, he had completely offended Dong Tianxiang. Looking at Dong Tianxiang again, he looked at the madman and the white-eyed wolf, his eyes as gloomy as water. The faces of the 3 burly men behind him were also extremely gloomy. You guys are very courageous, Dong Tianxiang said. Not bad. The white-eyed wolf nodded. Dong Tianxiang sneered, looked at Ji Daxiong and said, This is your answer to me? Ji Daxiong suddenly looked at Qin Feiyang and the others with some fear. If you don't answer, then I'll take it as a yes. Very good. You just wait to be destroyed. Dong Tianxiang said, stood up, looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and sneered. If you have the ability, then don't run. Let's see how long you can laugh. Let's go. With that, he shouted coldly and turned around to leave. The 3 burly men looked at Qin Feiyang and the others with a sinister smile, and also turned to leave. Did I say you can leave? But suddenly, the white-eyed wolf's voice sounded, and Dong Tianxiang and the others stopped and turned around to look at the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf drank the last mouthful of wine in the jar, slowly got up, looked at the 4 people and said with a smile, Is this a place where you can come and go as you please? Then what do you want? Dong Tianxiang crossed his arms and looked at the white-eyed wolf with a sneer. What do you think? The white-eyed wolf murmured. Suddenly, the corner of his mouth lifted. He rushed to Dong Tianxiang in one step. So fast! Dong Tianxiang instinctively took a step back. At the same time, the 3 burly men saw the white-eyed wolf rushing over. Their eyes flashed with killing intent, and they punched at the white-eyed wolf. How dare a clown be so presumptuous in front of me? The white-eyed wolf smiled coldly. In the palm of his hand, the power of 5 laws surged out. He stretched out his hands and grabbed the fists of the 2 burly men at the same time. With a sudden force, the 2 burly men screamed and their fists were smashed on the spot, blood splattering everywhere. Immediately, he kicked another burly man in the lower abdomen, and the power of law emerged. The burly man was also sent flying on the spot, blood spurting out of his mouth. In just a moment, the 3 burly men were seriously injured and their faces were pale. 5 ultimate mysteries, and all of them are ultimate laws. Dong Tianxiang looked at the white-eyed wolf, his face full of shock, as expected of the future Monster King. Ji Daxiong and the others were also shocked, because they also mastered the ultimate mysteries of the ultimate laws. They could see at a glance the strength of the power of law. The white-eyed wolf's 5 ultimate laws had reached the ultimate level. Chapter 44-36. However, although they were severely injured, their qi-si was not crippled. The 3 of them still had the strength to resist. you're courting death." With a furious roar, the three burly men wanted to activate the ultimate profundity of their strongest laws. At this time, activating the ultimate law would inevitably lead to a devastating situation. Not only the City Lord Mansion, but the entire Green Wind City would be destroyed. Of course, for Qin Feiyang and the other two, not to mention a Green Wind City. Even if the entire Central Dynasty was destroyed, they would not care. Because the people of the Central Dynasty, whether they were direct family members or collateral family members, were all members of the Dong family. Their deaths were not regrettable. But at this time they could not cause such a big commotion. The white-eyed wolf decisively attacked. The power of law emerged from his palm, containing the will of the heavenly Tao. In an instant, 3 consecutive palms were thrown out. The burly man and the other two screamed as their heads were smashed on the spot, flesh and blood splattering everywhere. Will of the heavenly Tao! Ji Daxiong and his son, as well as the 10 consecrators, were all shocked. Did they see wrongly? Wasn't he not at the Monster King level yet? Why would he have the will of the heavenly Tao? Dong Tianxiang was also dumbfounded on the spot. There was actually the will of the heavenly Tao. In other words, this person had already mastered the ultimate law of the 6 strongest laws. How could a small figure like Ji Daxiong invite an expert of the will of the heavenly Tao to help? Moreover, among the experts of the will of the heavenly Tao, who didn't know how powerful his nephew, Dong Hanzong, was, they would not dare to help Ji Daxiong. What was going on? Could it be, was this person really from the top 10 families? It was just that he had changed his appearance and he couldn't recognize him, because only the 10 great clans had such strength and courage. The divine souls of the burly man and his 2 companions escaped and hid behind Dong Tianxiang. They were also terrified. They never thought that Ji Daxiong would invite such a powerful reinforcements. With just this little strength, you dare to clamor with us? The white-eyed wolf looked at Dong Tianxiang and the burly man and the other 2 with disdain in his eyes. What are you so arrogant for? I am Dong Hanzong's second uncle. If you attack us, you're courting death. Dong Tianxiang laughed. Thinking of his nephew Dong Hanzong, he was full of confidence. Courting death? White-eyed wolf chuckled as killing intent flashed in his eyes. Even if Dong Hanzong himself was here, he wouldn't dare to say such words to us. Before he finished speaking, he took a step forward and instantly landed in front of Dong Tianxiang. What are you doing? Dong Tianxiang retreated in fear. The white-eyed wolf snickered and grabbed the 3 fleeing souls of the burly man and his companions. With a squeeze of his hand, the 3 souls were annihilated on the spot, accompanied by screams of pain. What? He was killed just like that? Ji Daxiong and the others were shocked. They had asked Qin Feiyang and the others to help. Their original intention was to solve this matter peacefully, but they had never expected that someone would die. All of this had caused a huge commotion. Dong Hanzong would definitely not let this matter rest. Sigh, now that things have come to this, I can only brace myself and do it. The Sea Lion Demon King sighed. As expected of Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, the Golden-Winged Wolf King, even Dong Hanzong's men were killed without hesitation. They were simply lawless. Boom! The white-eyed wolf turned his gaze and stared at Dong Tianxiang, his entire body exuding a bone-piercing, killing intent. This time Dong Tianxiang was scared, because the other party was not afraid of him at all. His so-called backer and backing were completely useless now. Wait a moment. Qin Feiyang spoke at this time. The white-eyed wolf was stunned and turned his head to look at Qin Feiyang in confusion. If we kill him, no one will bring a message to Dong Hanzong. Qin Feiyang faintly smiled. He looked at Dong Tianxiang and said, "Scram back. Tell Dong Hanzong that we will be waiting for him in Azure Wind City. However, we are also very busy. We will only wait for him for 3 days." He actually dared to directly challenge Dong Hanzong? Ji Daxiong and the others looked at each other. That was too crazy. Were they really not afraid of death? Good, you guys have guts. Dong Tianxiang nodded and laughed out of anger. He then turned around and walked out. The white-eyed wolf raised his eyebrows and shouted, I asked you to get out, not walk out. Hearing this, Dong Tianxiang's body suddenly stiffened. He turned his head to stare at the white-eyed wolf and shouted, Don't you go too far! Go too far? Who was the one who came here to show off? Who was the one who came here to slap Ji Xiaowu? Why? Do you want me to slap you too? But I'm afraid that you can't bear it. The white-eyed wolf's eyes flashed coldly. You, Dong Tianxiang, was furious. What about me? I'm asking you to get out or not. The white-eyed wolf shouted, his body full of murderous intent. Just you wait. And you, Ji Daxiong, let me tell you, you're finished, completely finished. Dong Tianxiang growled and lay on the ground, enduring the humiliation, and rolled out like a rubber ball. Ha ha! The white-eyed wolf laughed wildly. The guards outside could not help but look at each other when they saw Dong Tianxiang rolling out. What's going on? Previously, he walked in arrogantly, but now he's rolling out with his tail between his legs. I won't let you off, I swear. Dong Tianxiang got up, stared at the main hall, and roared. He then opened a space-time tunnel and ran in without looking back. This is really satisfying, Ji Xiaowu laughed. It's satisfying now, but we'll be in trouble in the future. Ji Daxiong sighed. Huh. Ji Xiaowu looked at Ji Daxiong. This time, not only did we kill those 3 dogs, but we also humiliated Dong Tianxiang. Will Dong Hanzong let this go? I'm afraid that soon we'll have to face Dong Hanzong's revenge. Ji Daxiong was worried. How was this helping him? It was simply causing trouble for him. Hearing this, Ji Xiaowu's body stiffened and his face turned pale. Is this all you have? The white-eyed wolf looked at the group of people speechlessly. My lord, we're different from you. You're the monster kings of the Kunpeng Sea region. At most, you can just leave. Moreover, you have the divine beast Kunpeng to support you. But what about us? Who's going to support us? We still have to survive in Green Wind City. How can we survive after fending Dong Hanzong? Unless he's dead. But he's so strong, who can kill him? Ji Daxiong and the group of consecrators were worried. If we knew this, we wouldn't have bothered to help you. The white-eyed wolf snorted. Ji Daxiong's face showed a trace of anger. Originally, he wanted to say that he was the one who truly regretted asking them for help. But now that he had offended Dong Hanzong, if he offended these monster kings, their situation would be even more difficult. So he endured it. Xiaowu, take the 4 monster kings to the backyard to rest. Remember to treat them well. Ji Daxiong looked at Ji Xiaowu and ordered. Yes. Ji Xiaowu nodded and looked at Qin Feiyan and the other 3. He bowed and said, Seniors, please follow me. City Lord, what should we do? Dong Hanzong will definitely not let us go. If he comes personally, we'll be dead. After Qin Feiyan and the other 3 left, the group of consecrators surrounded Ji Daxiong and said, I know. Can't you see that I'm also worried about this? Ji Daxiong said angrily, looking extremely irritated. The group of consecrators heard this and looked at each other as if they had made a decision. City Lord, we can't risk our lives with you. Let's part ways here. The group of consecrators said, What? You're leaving? Ji Daxiong looked at the group of people in disbelief. That's right. We're just consecrators that you invited. We're not your people. There's no reason for us to die with you. Of course, if this matter can be resolved peacefully in the future, we'll come back and continue to assist you. The group of consecrators said, What a joke! If you leave when there's danger and come back when there's no danger, then why did I invite you here? Are you going to guard my house? Dogs are enough to guard the house. Even dogs are more loyal than you. Ji Daxiong roared. He was about to explode. These consecrators were usually treated, well, as if they were living bodhisattvas, waiting for them to lend a hand when they were in danger. But now, all of them wanted to escape. How could he not be angry? Don't make it sound so bad. The person you provoked this time is Dong Hanzong. He's not an ordinary person. Go and ask around. Who dares to help you deal with Dong Hanzong? I'm afraid it's only those 4 arrogant monster kings. The group of consecrators snorted coldly, then turned around and left without looking back, leaving behind their merciless backs. Bastard, you're all cowards. To think that you've mastered so many ultimate profundities of supreme laws. Ji Daxiong was extremely angry. He had never seen such a heartless and unscrupulous person. In the backyard, the scenery of mountains and rivers was delightful. In front of a clear lake, there were many antique pavilions. For seniors, you can stay here. Ji Xiaowu led Qin Feiyang and the other 3 to one of the pavilions and said respectfully, "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Then you can rest first. If you need anything, just let us know." Ji Xiaowu said. "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded again. "This junior will take his leave." Ji Xiaowu bowed and turned to leave quickly. I didn't expect Ji Daxiong to be so useless. White-eyed Wolf looked around and said in disdain, "We can't blame him. After all, the other party is Dong Hanzong. We're not afraid, but it doesn't mean that others aren't." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled, then looked at the Sea Lion Monster King and said, "You're right." The Sea Lion Monster King smiled bitterly. Since he had already boarded this pirate ship, what else could he say? Madman's eyes flickered with killing intent as he said, "Dong Hanzong must die. If we don't get rid of him, he will bring us big trouble sooner or later. He's already a problem now. The last time in the 4 great continents was really a pity. If he didn't leave his divine soul in the Central Dynasty, he would be a corpse now." Qin Feiyang sighed deeply. What a pity. End of chapter. Chapter 44-37. But it won't be easy to kill Dong Hanzong. The madman shook his head and looked at Qin Feiyang. "Let's find the inner demons and see where they are now. They should know that we have entered the Central Dynasty." The White-Eyed Wolf said, "With the connection between the inner demons and little Qinzi, they probably know that we are in Green Wind City." The madman nodded. Qin Feiyang closed his eyes, relaxed his body and mind, and sensed the location of the inner demons. Inner demons? Big cousin? The Sea Lion Monster King looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 2 in surprise. Who are these 2? After a while, Qin Feiyang opened his eyes and looked up at the right side of the sky. The madman and the White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other and also looked up. Qin Feiyang said, "I don't know where that is, but I have determined their location." Hearing this, the madman turned to the Sea Lion Monster King and asked, "Is there anything special in this direction?" Special? The Sea Lion Monster King was taken aback. After pondering for a while, he frowned and said, "In this direction there are many large and small cities, but if there is anything special, it should be Imperial Capital Mountain." Imperial Capital Mountain. The eyes of the 3 flashed. That's right. Imperial Capital Mountain. Our Central Dynasty, the most supreme place. The Sea Lion Monster King nodded. The White-Eyed Wolf looked at the madman and Qin Feiyang and said, "They can't be at Imperial Capital Mountain right now." Imperial Capital Mountain, Qin Feiyang murmured. Isn't this good? If the 2 were really at Imperial Capital Mountain, it meant that they had gained the trust of the Emperor. Moreover, he could sense the location of the inner demons, and the inner demons could also sense his location. So if there was a chance, the inner demons and Big Cousin would definitely come to find them. There is one thing that I am puzzled about. The madman suddenly frowned. What? Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf looked at him suspiciously. The inner demons and Big Cousin returned to the central dynasty to cause trouble for Dong Qingyuan. But why is Dong Qingyuan still living such a comfortable life? Madman was confused. Yeah. White-eyed Wolf also slapped his head. Back when he was in the 4 great continents, it had not been easy for him to create such an opportunity. Given the means of the inner demons and his cousin, there was no way they would let Dong Qingyuan off so easily once they returned to the central dynasty. However, when they saw Dong Qingyuan on the Kuan Peng Divine Island, they did not find anything amiss. He was still the commander of the Death God army. He was still deeply trusted by the emperor. It was still active. I'm afraid I'll have to meet the inner demons and big cousin before I can find out. Qin Feiyang pondered. What are you talking about? What inner demons? What big cousin? She's even related to Dong Qingyuan. Sea Lion Demon King looked confused. He did not understand at all. You're a demon king after all. Why are you so insensible? We didn't tell you because we didn't want you to know. Why are you still so insensible? White-eyed Wolf glared at him. Don't be like this. At least now, I'm considered one of your own. Sea Lion Demon King smiled awkwardly. One of our own? You really don't regard me as an outsider at all. White-eyed Wolf was speechless. This guy was so thick-skinned that even he had to admit defeat. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He looked at Sea Lion Demon King and said, When we think that you are worthy of our trust, we will naturally take the initiative to tell you. As for now, just bear with your curiosity. Sea Lion Demon King pursed his lips and glanced around. His eyes rolled slightly as he said, I'm going out for a walk. Where are you going? White-eyed Wolf frowned. I'm going to Emperor Mountain to find the Emperor and betray you. Sea Lion Demon King snorted coldly and turned around to leave without looking back. White-eyed Wolf's mouth twitched. This guy was really not easy to deal with. However, Qin Feiyang and the other 2 did not take his words seriously. Often, the fiercer the words, the less likely it was to do so. Moreover, Sea Lion Demon King also knew Qin Feiyang and the other 2's methods. The only outcome of betrayal was death. Even if he hid in Emperor Mountain, he would still die. At the same time, in a secret room, Ji Daxiong stood in front of a white-haired old man and asked with a frown, Father, what do you think we should do about this? This white-haired old man was as thin as a skeleton. His old eyes were turbid and his face was full of dry wrinkles. His eye bags were deep and he looked like a ghost with disheveled hair. It was quite scary. This person, he was the previous city lord, Ji Daxiong's father, Ji Changming, and he was in existence who had mastered 5 ultimate profound meanings of the strongest laws. He only needed one ultimate profound meaning of the strongest law to be able to master the will of the heavens and be comparable to a demon king. Ji Changming was silent for a while and said angrily, What else can we do? We must find a way to solve it. I know. I'm just asking you, how can we solve this matter? Now I really have no way. Ji Daxiong was about to cry. Isn't this all your fault? I asked you to find a way to solve this matter peacefully, but you found a few egomaniacs. Not only did you not solve this matter, but you also made our situation more dangerous. Ji Changming snorted from his nose. Yes, it's all my son's fault. Ji Daxiong nodded repeatedly. You can't do anything right. Ji Changming glared at Ji Daxiong and stared at the ground. He said in a deep voice, There's only one way now. Take the initiative to find Dong Hanzong and apologize. What? Ji Daxiong was shocked. If we take the initiative to apologize to Dong Hanzong now, there may be room for redemption. But once Dong Hanzong comes in person, we will all die. Ji Changming said. But Ji Daxiong frowned. Ji Changming said, You mean Dong Hanzong will take the opportunity to make us submit to him? Yes. Ji Daxiong nodded. Sigh. Ji Changming sighed deeply and said in a hoarse voice, Daxiong, some things are unavoidable. Dong Hanzong is now powerful. If we don't submit, we will die in his hands sooner or later. There was helplessness in his words. Ji Daxiong couldn't help but fall silent. This is the way of the world. Who asked us to be weak? How can a weak person control his own fate? Go! Be sincere. What's wrong? Blame it on these monster kings. I don't think I need to teach you this kind of thing. You should know what to do, Ji Changming said. Understood. Ji Daxiong nodded, but he was still a little hesitant. The other party was the monster king of the Kunpeng Sea region. They couldn't afford to offend him. Don't worry. As long as we really submit to Dong Hanzong, then Dong Hanzong will be our backer. Facing Dong Hanzong, even the mythical beast Kunpeng of the Kunpeng Sea region will have to give him some face. Ji Changming waved his hand with a complicated expression. No matter how hard they struggled, they couldn't escape the fate of being controlled in the end. Phew! Ji Daxiong took a deep breath and nodded. I understand. Ji Changming's eyes flashed coldly and said, In addition, those 10 consecrators have been eating and drinking in our city, Lord Mansion, for so long. We can't let them leave so easily. What do you mean? Ji Daxiong was surprised. Find a chance to get rid of them, Ji Changming said. Okay, Ji Daxiong nodded. This kind of treacherous and cowardly person indeed deserved to be killed. However, he didn't think about it. Now he went to Dong Hanzong to apologize behind Qin Feiyang and the others. Wasn't that treacherous and cowardly behavior? Hanzong City. This city was located in the northwest of the Central Dynasty. Although this Hanzong City wasn't big in terms of reputation, it was estimated to be comparable to the top 10 super cities, because the owner of Hanzong City was Dong Hanzong. This city was named after Dong Hanzong. Inside the city, there was an endless stream of horses and carriages. A majestic mansion stood in the center of the city like a king. This was the city lord's mansion. Bastard, bastard. Dong Tianxiang sat on a throne in a hall, bristling with anger. The guards and maids outside could feel Dong Tianxiang's anger and couldn't help but tremble. Swish! Suddenly, a space-time passage opened. A purple figure walked out and landed outside the hall. Greetings, young master. When the guards and maids outside the door saw this person, they couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief and bowed to greet him. As long as the young master came back, then there was nothing that couldn't be solved. Go down! The purple-clothed young man waved his hand and smiled, looking amiable and approachable. After the group of guards and maids left, the purple-clothed young man entered the hall and looked at Dong Tianxiang, who was sitting on the throne in a rage, and said with a smile, Second uncle, what happened to make you so angry that you scared those maids and guards? Hanzong. Dong Tianxiang looked up at the young man and couldn't help but be shocked. He hurriedly got up and walked to the young man with a smile. You're back so soon? How would I dare to neglect your summons? I definitely had to rush back immediately. The purple-clothed young man chuckled. Brat. Dong Tianxiang rolled his eyes at the purple-clothed young man, then pulled the young man to the side of the tea table and sat down. Second uncle, what exactly happened? The purple-clothed young man was suspicious. This purple-clothed young man was none other than Dong Hanzong. Hanzong, your second uncle was humiliated. Dong Tianxiang clenched his fists and said angrily, What? Humiliated you? Who has the guts? Dong Hanzong raised his eyebrows and a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. I don't know them either, but these people are related to Ji Daxiong. Dong Tianxiang said. Ji Daxiong? Dong Hanzong was stunned. That's right. Didn't you ask me to persuade Ji Daxiong to submit to us? I went there 3 days ago. At that time he didn't agree, so I said I'll give him 3 days to consider. But today, when I brought people to Green Wind City to look for them, Ji Daxiong was already prepared. I don't know where he found helpers from. But not only did they kill the people I brought, they even told me to get out of the hall. Dong Tianxiang was burning with anger. This matter was a great humiliation. Get out? Dong Hanzong frowned. Yes, like a ball, get out of the hall. Hanzong, ever since you became one of the 5 unparalleled geniuses, when have I, your second uncle, ever been wronged like this? You must help your second uncle vent this anger. Dong Tianxiang exclaimed. End of chapter. Chapter 4438. Dong Hanzong's brows furrowed as he said in a deep voice, How dare you ask my second uncle to get out? You really don't know life from death. Who are they? What do they look like? Dong Tianxiang waved his hand, and the figures of Qin Feiyang and the other 3 appeared. Looking at Qin Feiyang, Madman, and White-Eyed Wolf, Dong Hanzong's eyes flashed with a trace of suspicion. He had no impression at all. The one who humiliated me is him. He controls the will of the heavens. Dong Tianxiang pointed at the White-Eyed Wolf. The will of the heavens. Dong Hanzong's pupils shrank. Since he was a person who controlled the will of the heavens, he was definitely not an unknown person. But why did he have no impression of him? However, when he looked at the Sea Lion Demon King, he suddenly stood up, his eyes full of uncertainty. What's wrong? Dong Tianxiang was also shocked by Dong Hanzong's reaction. Dong Hanzong was silent, staring at the figure of the Sea Lion Demon King. After a long time, he slowly returned to his seat, lowered his head, and seemed to be lost in thought. Hanzong, what's wrong? Dong Tianxiang was very anxious. Second uncle. Dong Hanzong slowly raised his head and looked at Dong Tianxiang. If I remember correctly, this person is the Demon King of the Kunpeng Sea region. Demon King. Dong Tianxiang was shocked. Yes, I once went to the Kunpeng Sea region to train and saw many Demon Kings, so I have some impression of them. This Demon King should be the Sea Lion Demon King. Dong Hanzong nodded. How could this be? Why is the Demon King in Qingfeng City? Shouldn't an existence like him go to the top 10 super cities? Dong Tianxiang was surprised. It turned out to be the Demon King. No wonder he dared to humiliate him and kill his men in public. This is also what I'm puzzled about. Now, Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and the Golden-Winged Wolf King broke into the Kunpeng Sea region. Logically speaking, the Sea Lion Demon King should be on the Kunpeng Island, assisting Teacher, Kunpeng, and the Dragon God to capture them. But now, why would he appear in Qingfeng City? Dong Hanzong frowned. What? Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and Golden-Winged Wolf King have all entered the Kunpeng Sea region. Dong Tianxiang was greatly shaken. Yes, this is the news from the Death God Army's 9th and 8th teams. Now, these 2 teams have already sealed off the coastline of the Kunpeng Sea area. They are preparing to kill Qin Feiyang and the other 2 in the Kunpeng Sea area. Dong Hanzong nodded. No way. Why didn't any of the major cities hear about such a big thing? Dong Tianxiang said, It's precisely because this matter is too important that in order to avoid causing a commotion, Lord Emperor has ordered for this news to be sealed off. But I don't think it will last long. After all, there's no such thing as an airtight wall in this world. Dong Hanzong shook her head. Dong Tianxiang said worriedly, Then you have to be careful. They will definitely come for revenge. Revenge? Second uncle, you think too highly of them. This time, Master has not only brought the 9th and 8th teams, but also the entire Death God Army. Facing the entire Death God Army, no matter how powerful Qin Feiyang and the other 2 are, they will only die. I believe that they will definitely die in the Kunpeng Sea area. They won't even have the chance to see the coastline of the Kunpeng Sea area. Dong Hanzong sneered. That's good. Dong Tianxiang heaved a sigh of relief and asked curiously, How strong is the Death God Army? Don't ask. The strength of the Death God army is beyond imagination. Some time ago, I followed Master to Emperor Capital Mountain and entered the base of the Death God army. Even I was shocked when I saw the terrifying lineup. Dong Hanzong said in awe. Dong Tianxiang was stunned when he heard this. Of course, he knew his nephew's character. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't take them seriously at all. If even he was startled by it, it was bound to be an extraordinarily frightening existence. Monster King. Dong Hanzong looked up at Qin Feiyang and the other two and said lightly, since the identity of the Sea Lion Monster King has been confirmed, these three should also be Monster Kings. It's just that I haven't seen them before. For Monster Kings, then I can only swallow my anger. Dong Tianxiang was very unwilling. Swallow my anger? Second uncle, you think too highly of them. If they were the divine beast Kunping or the dragon god, I wouldn't dare to do anything to them. But a mere monster king, I don't put them in my eyes at all. Let's go. I'll take you there and get justice for you. Dong Hanzong smiled coldly and immediately got up to open a space-time passage. Dong Tianxiang was very excited when he heard this. Damn things, just wash your necks and wait for me. Patriarch. But at this moment, a voice came from outside. Dong Tianxiang was taken aback and turned to look outside the door. He saw a guard running in hurriedly. Greetings, Patriarch. Greetings, young master. The guard entered the hall and bowed respectfully in front of the two. What's the matter? Dong Tianxiang was suspicious. The guard said, the city lord of Qingfeng City, Jidaxiong, is outside asking for an audience. Jidaxiong? Dong Tianxiang was slightly taken aback. He turned to look at Dong Hanzong and asked suspiciously, what does he mean? Dong Hanzong pondered for a while. His eyes flashed slightly. With a wave of his hand, the space-time passage disappeared. He looked at the guard and said, invite him in. Yes. The guard nodded respectfully. No. Dong Hanzong suddenly raised his hand and shouted at the guard who was leaving, let him in. Get in. The guard was stunned and said in surprise, young master, I'm afraid this is inappropriate. There's nothing inappropriate. If he's not willing, just ask him to get lost. Dong Hanzong said indifferently. All right. The guard nodded and turned to leave quickly. Dong Tianxiang looked at Dong Hanzong and laughed. Hanzong, you're really good. You're starting to vent for second uncle now. Since he dares to make second uncle angry, I will definitely not let him go. Dong Hanzong laughed. Dong Tianxiang was quite proud, and the vanity in his heart was satisfied. He asked, then are you sure he will roll in? He will. Dong Hanzong nodded. Why? Dong Tianxiang was suspicious. Because he's here to beg us. The corners of Dong Hanzong's mouth lifted slightly with a hint of mockery. Beg us? That's impossible. Previously in Greenwind City, his attitude was still very strong. Dong Tianxiang frowned. Dong Hanzong said, are you sure Jidaxiong is stronger? Or are you sure the four monster kings are stronger? Dong Tianxiang was slightly stunned. After thinking carefully for a moment, when the white-eyed wolf humiliated him, Jidaxiong did not seem to have said anything. Second uncle, if I'm not wrong, Jidaxiong's original plan should be to solve these problems peacefully with us. But he didn't expect the four demon kings to be so arrogant and conceited. They killed our people and humiliated you. Who are you? You're my second uncle. Even if it's a monster king, I, Dong Hanzong, am not afraid. Jidaxiong is not stupid and can definitely think of this. So, the four monster kings can no longer be his backing. So now he only has one path, which is to take the initiative to come to us and bring a bramble to ask for punishment. Dong Hanzong smiled. He had to admit that this Dong Hanzong's brain was indeed terrifying. All of this was not far from the truth. I see. Dong Tianxiang nodded in realization. More. The 4 monster kings will return to the Kunpung Sea region sooner or later. Once the 4 monster kings leave, who will protect them? So, as long as the 4 monster kings leave with our strength, dealing with a mere Jidaxiong is as easy as crushing an ant. All of the above factors make Jidaxiong have to reconsider the stakes. Of course, this may be the intention of that old thing. After all, that old thing is much more shrewd than Jidaxiong. Dong Hanzong said. You mean Ji Zhangming? Dong Tianxiang asked. Yes. Dong Hanzong nodded. Dong Tianxiang asked, Then will you forgive them? I have to ask you this. As long as you forgive them, then there is nothing for me to pursue. Anyway, they are just small fries, not worth mentioning. Dong Hanzong laughed and did not take it seriously at all. When Dong Tianxiang heard this, the corners of his mouth could not help but lift slightly. Ji Daxiong, you did not expect that you would fall into my hands so quickly. You will have a good time later. Outside the mansion, Ji Daxiong stood outside the gate, waiting anxiously. Finally, the guard returned. Brother, how is it? Ji Daxiong hurriedly greeted with a flattering smile on his face. Master, and young master agreed to let you in. The guard nodded. Dong Hanzong is also here? Ji Daxiong was shocked. Presumptuous. You dare to call my young master's name directly. The guard was furious on the spot. I'm sorry, I spoke without thinking. Ji Daxiong panicked and quickly apologized. The guard snorted coldly and said lightly, Young master said that you can go in, but you have to roll in. If you don't want to leave and get lost. Roll in. Ji Daxiong's face turned pale. His body could not help but tremble. Wasn't this the same as giving him a taste of his own medicine? But at that time, the person who asked Dong Tianxiang to roll out of the hall was not him, but the 4 monster kings. If you want to settle the score, you should look for them. Who did I offend? What right do you have to humiliate me like this? You don't want to? Then get lost. The guard smiled coldly. Ji Daxiong clenched his fists, gritted his teeth, and nodded. I'm willing, I'll roll in. After saying that, he suppressed his anger and humiliation, lay on the ground, and rolled toward the gate. Damn it, what's the situation? Someone actually rolled into the city, Lord Mansion. Let me see who it is. How can he do such an embarrassing thing? Outside the city Lord Mansion, there was a street. Although it was not the main street and was not as bustling, there were still many people who frequently passed by here. Therefore, very soon, many people gathered here, their faces full of curiosity. He seems a little familiar. Wait, it seems to be him, the city lord of Green Wind City, Ji Daxiong? Yes, it's him. I've seen him in Green Wind City before. At that time, he was very awe-inspiring. Wherever he went, people would kneel down and worship him. But I didn't expect that he would roll into the city Lord Mansion when he came to our Hanzong city. Could it be that he offended our city lord? Offended our city lord? Don't joke. Our city lord's nephew is Lord Dong Hanzong. How dare he offend him? Everyone was discussing. Hearing these discussions, Ji Daxiong's face was flushed red, and he wished he could find a hole to hide in. At the same time, he hated Qin Feiyang and the other 3 to the extreme. That's right. At this moment, he did not hate Dong Tianxiang or Dong Hanzong, but chose to hate Qin Feiyang and the other 3. Because, in his opinion, the reason why he was suffering such humiliation was entirely because of Qin Feiyang and the other 3. They helped him, but they still hated Qin Feiyang and the other 3. Wasn't this a classic example of being ungrateful, repaying kindness with evil? Chapter 4439. Ji Daxiong had been humiliated and ridiculed all the way to the city Lord Mansion. After entering the city Lord Mansion, he had to face the ridicule of the guards and maids. This moment was torture for him. His pride and dignity had completely crumbled. "Ha ha!" Dong Tianxiang laughed as he watched Ji Daxiong roll to the entrance of the main hall. This laughter was particularly harsh in Ji Daxiong's ears. "Crawl in on your knees," Dong Hanzong said. Ji Daxiong's eyes trembled. Dong Hanzong was really here. He was the leader of the 5 unparalleled geniuses and had mastered the ultimate profundities of the 7 strongest laws. He was basically an invincible existence in the entire Central Dynasty. Facing Dong Hanzong, he did not dare to be the slightest bit negligent. He crawled into the main hall and knelt in the middle of the hall. He bowed and said, "Greetings, Lord Hanzong. Do you know why I asked you to come in?" Dong Hanzong asked faintly. "Yes, I don't know how to appreciate your kindness." Ji Daxiong nodded fearfully. "You really don't know how to appreciate kindness. It's your honor to be able to serve me, but you actually disobeyed me. You even invited a monster king to humiliate my second uncle. May I ask who gave you the courage? Do you think a few monster kings can be your backer?" Dong Hanzong's face was full of disdain. Not to mention the monster kings, he did not even care about the monster kings of the Kuan Pangxi region. Yes. It's all my fault." Ji Daxiong nodded and begged, "Lord Hanzong, please be magnanimous and not bicker with a nobody like me. I really don't want to bicker with you, because you don't have the right. But my second uncle," Dong Hanzong did not say anything else. The meaning of his words was quite obvious. If Dong Tianxiang wanted to be merciful, it would depend on his attitude. Ji Daxiong quickly looked at Dong Tianxiang and kowtowed. "I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Please forgive me." "Forgive?" Dong Tianxiang laughed and slowly got up. He walked in front of Ji Daxiong and raised his hand to slap Ji Daxiong's face. Half of Ji Daxiong's face was instantly lacerated. It was a heart-wrenching pain. But now he didn't dare to say it out loud. He could only endure with all his might. "Even if I kill you, it won't be enough to appease the hatred in my heart," Dong Tianxiang said ferociously as he kicked Ji Daxiong again. Ji Daxiong was about to get up. Dong Tianxiang took another step forward and stepped on Ji Daxiong's face. He sneered, "I can forgive you, but you have to do one thing." "What is it?" Ji Daxiong hurriedly asked. Not to mention one thing. He was willing to do 100 things. He only hoped that this humiliation would end soon. "Xiao Huan, come in." Dong Tianxiang retracted his foot and shouted towards the door. A pretty maid quickly walked in and bowed. "Master, come over here and stand properly." Dong Tianxiang pointed to his side. Maid Xiao Huan immediately walked to Dong Tianxiang's side. Dong Tianxiang took a few steps back and looked at Ji Daxiong, who was crawling up. "Crawl under Xiao Huan's crotch, and I'll forgive you." "What?" Ji Daxiong's face instantly turned pale. Crawl under his crotch? Moreover, it was under a woman's crotch. Was there anything more shameful than this? "You think it's embarrassing?" Dong Tianxiang sneered. Ji Daxiong trembled. The humiliation of crawling under his crotch was more than embarrassing. No man in the world would do such a shameless thing. "If you don't want to crawl, then get lost. Anyway, we're preparing to go to Green Wind City." Dong Tianxiang smiled coldly. "What?" Ji Daxiong's eyes trembled. Dong Tianxiang was planning to go to Green Wind City again? Looking at Dong Hanzong's expression, was he going to go personally? Dong Hanzong said faintly, "Before you came, we had already opened the space-time tunnel to Green Wind City." Ji Daxiong was shocked. Fortunately, he came in time. Otherwise, they would have been destroyed by now. "I'll ask you one last time. Crawl or not?" Dong Tianxiang shouted angrily. "Crawl." Ji Daxiong shuddered and nodded quickly. He closed his eyes and crawled towards Maid Xiao Huan step by step. Maid Xiao Huan's cheeks were red. After all, she was still a young woman. She would definitely be embarrassed about this kind of thing. However, she did not dare to disobey Dong Tianxiang's order. Finally, Ji Daxiong endured the humiliation and crawled over. Haha! Dong Tinxiang also raised his head and laughed. This was the result of going against him. The 4 monster kings, just you wait. Soon you will be like Ji Daxiong and suffer endless humiliation. Second uncle, are you satisfied? Dong Hanzong asked with a smile. Satisfied, very satisfied. Dong Tinxiang nodded. Ji Daxiong opened his eyes, hiding the anger in his heart, looked at Dong Hanzong and said, Lord Hanzong, can you spare me now? Dong Hanzong said, Since second uncle is satisfied, then I naturally have nothing to pursue. Thank you, Lord. Ji Daxiong thanked repeatedly. Don't thank me too early. If you don't want us to find trouble with you, there is one more condition. Submit to me. Dong Hanzong said lightly. I'm willing to submit. Ji Daxiong nodded. You agreed so quickly? Dong Tianxiang was stunned and sneered. If you agreed earlier, would there be such a thing now? Yes. It's all because of my ignorance. But now I have been enlightened. From now on, I will do my best for Lord Hanzong. Ji Daxiong smiled flatteringly, looking like a standard lackey. Very good. Dong Hanzong nodded with a smile and said lightly, Tell me, how did you invite the 4 monster kings? They entered Green Wind City by themselves. I don't know why they came to Green Wind City. I received the news that they entered the city, so I asked my son to find them. My original intention was to see if this matter could be resolved peacefully. After all, they are the monster kings of the Kunpeng Sea region. You might give them face, but I didn't expect them to be so arrogant and do such a thing. Ji Daxiong said regretfully, Face? They are just monster kings. I will give them face? Do they think they are Kunpeng? Dong Hanzong smiled disdainfully. What else could Ji Daxiong say? He could only say yes. Now you know how naive you are. Dong Tianxiang sneered. I know. Ji Daxiong nodded. Where are they now? Dong Tianxiang asked. Ji Daxiong said, They are all placed in the backyard. Good. Take us there now. I want to see if they still dare to be arrogant when they see my nephew coming in person. Dong Tianxiang smiled coldly. Backyard. Qin Feiyang was leisurely sitting by the lake, drinking tea. The Frenzy and the White-Eyed Wolf were naturally drinking. Of course, they weren't just drinking tea here. They were waiting for Dong Hanzong. They were already clear about Dong Hanzong's character. He would definitely come. Buzz. Suddenly, a space-time passage appeared. But the person who came was not Dong Hanzong or Dong Tianxiang, but the Sea Lion Monster King. The Sea Lion Monster King ran out of the space-time passage and ran excitedly to Qin Feiyang and the other 2. What's the matter? Why are you so happy? The 3 of them looked at him suspiciously. Good thing. The Sea Lion Monster King bared his teeth and took out an old jar. This jar had no patterns. It was completely black and looked extremely ordinary. What is it? The 3 of them were curious. This is a treasure. It wasn't easy for me to find it, and I spent a lot of money to get it. The Sea Lion Monster King bared his teeth and put the jar on the table. The White-Eyed Wolf looked at it curiously for a while and said suspiciously, Could it be a wine jar? The shape of this thing was indeed like a wine jar. It was the size of 2 adult palms and was tightly sealed. Don't even think about it. I specially prepared this for Qin Feiyang. The Frenzy was about to open the wine jar when the Sea Lion Monster King quickly reached out and slapped the Frenzy's hand away. What? And it was specially prepared for Qin Feiyang. Why are you treating him differently? The White-Eyed Wolf stared at the Sea Lion Monster King. If it was wine, he definitely wouldn't give it to Qin Feiyang like this. In his eyes, there was nothing in this world more tempting than wine. You don't understand. Anyway, you can't touch this thing. After the Sea Lion Monster King said, he looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled. There is indeed wine in it, but it's not ordinary wine. When the time comes, I guarantee you will be surprised. Although the wine is good, don't drink too much. It's really wine. The frenzy and the white-eyed wolf were taken aback and quickly reached out to grab it. The sea lion monster king grabbed the wine jar and said angrily, "Are you dogs? Why are you snatching everything? Are you looking for a beating?" The two glared at him. How could they give this wine to Qin Feiyang? Giving it to him was purely a waste. He didn't know how to drink at all. Humph! The sea lion monster king snorted coldly and came in front of Qin Feiyang. He stuffed the wine jar into Qin Feiyang's hand and said with a smile, "It's really a good thing. You must treasure it well." Qin Feiyang looked at the wine jar and then at the sea lion monster king. He couldn't help but laugh. "I know you don't drink, but this wine is different. It's good for you. Trust me this time. When the time comes, you will definitely come to the market to see me," the sea lion monster king said solemnly. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Was it really that good? Hey, I'm just being kind. Are you still doubting me? Okay, just think of it as me worrying for nothing. I'll throw it away now. The sea lion monster king snorted and threw the wine jar into the lake. Don't. How can you throw it away? He doesn't like it, but we do. The frenzy quickly stopped the sea lion monster king and stared at the wine jar with burning eyes. The sea lion monster king said it so well. The wine inside must be extraordinary. Not for you. The sea lion monster king snorted coldly. I say, you're really looking for a beating. The white-eyed wolf suddenly became angry. I'm also doing it for your own good. You can't drink this wine, the sea lion monster king said patiently. Why can't I drink it? The white-eyed wolf frowned and said, Is it poisonous? Get lost. If it's poisonous, why would I stop you? With your addiction to wine, you would have been poisoned to death long ago. The sea lion monster king rolled his eyes. Ha! The white-eyed wolf laughed dryly. That's true. If it was really poisonous, the sea lion monster king would definitely want them to drink it. End of this chapter. Chapter 4440. Buzz. At this moment, another space-time tunnel appeared. Familiar auras emerged one after another. Dong Hanzong. Madman's eyes narrowed. And Dong Tianxiang. Wait. Why is there Ji Daxiong's aura? The white-eyed wolf frowned. Sea Lion's pupils shrank as he hurriedly put away the wine jar and stared at the space-time tunnel. Not to mention anything else. Just the name Dong Hanzong was enough to make people treat him seriously. Finally, 3 figures walked out. If it wasn't Dong Hanzong, Dong Tianxiang, and Ji Daxiong, who else could it be? After not seeing each other for a while, this Dong Hanzong was more energetic than before. Madman frowned and said, Ji Daxiong, why are you with them? I have now realized my mistake. Ji Daxiong said indifferently. Realized your mistake? Madman was taken aback. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed as he said with a faint smile, So, you intend to be their lackey? Don't make it sound so bad. A wise man submits to circumstances. Ji Daxiong sneered. Haha, I really admire you. Even being a lackey can make it sound so dignified. Madman laughed loudly. He was really blind to help such a thing. Ji Daxiong's face sank as he said angrily, Lord Hanzong personally came and you still don't kneel? Are you courting death? Him. Is he qualified to make us kneel? You're a good dog. You're protecting your master so quickly, showing your loyalty. The white-eyed wolf sneered. You, Ji Daxiong was furious. Calling him a dog, what did he think he was? Interesting. Dong Hanzong chuckled and looked at Qin Feiyang's group of 4. This is the first time I see a monster king daring to be so arrogant in front of me. What are you? So what if I'm arrogant in front of you? The white-eyed wolf looked at him mockingly. Good. Very good. Originally, I wanted to leave some face for Kunpeng and let you admit your mistake. but now you're all dead." Dong Hanzong's eyes flashed with killing intent. "Haha, this day next year will be the anniversary of your deaths." Dong Tianxiang laughed. "Shut up, trash. Don't embarrass yourself," White-Eyed Wolf said calmly. When Dong Tianxiang heard this, he immediately roared with hostility. "Bastard! Today I will make you suffer a fate worse than death." "You don't have that ability," the White-Eyed Wolf sneered and looked at Dong Hanzong. "You are quite impressive. No wonder you are the top genius of the Central Dynasty." "You flatter me." Dong Hanzong smiled faintly and looked down at the four of them. "Kill yourselves so I don't have to do it myself." "Haha!" The White-Eyed Wolf laughed loudly. Madman was also laughing. The corners of Qin Feiyang's mouth also curled into a smile. "Suicide? How could there be someone in this world with such naive thoughts? Do you still think you're some big shot? Just because he said he wanted someone to commit suicide, they had to commit suicide? It seems that you all have chosen the second path." Dong Hanzong wasn't angry and he chuckled. "In my opinion, there is a third path." The White-Eyed Wolf sneered. "What path? Let's hear it. Maybe I can give you some suggestions." Dong Hanzong crossed his arms and looked at the White-Eyed Wolf with a mocking gaze. "Okay, the third path is to kill you. Now tell me, what good suggestions do you have?" The White-Eyed Wolf said. "Kill me?" Dong Hanzong was slightly stunned and smiled. "Then my suggestion is that you all should give up this unrealistic idea as soon as possible, because this is a joke. You will never have the ability to do so." "Is that so?" "Confidence is a good thing, but too much confidence may not be a good thing." The White-Eyed Wolf sneered. "Confidence needs capital. I, Dong Hanzong, have this capital. Let's go. Follow me to the Star River to die." After Dong Hanzong said that, he stepped out and entered the Star River without looking back. "Don't run if you have the guts." Dong Tianxiang laughed and followed him into the Star River. "It's all because of you that I was humiliated like this. I will only be happy when I see you all die with my own eyes." Ji Daxiong stared at Qin Feiyang and the other three with a sinister smile and followed him into the Star River. "Sigh. This is the human heart. It's too scary." The Sea Lion Beast King looked at Ji Daxiong's back and sighed. He helped him out of kindness, but in the end he got hatred and resentment. "They are just a bunch of clowns." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. He stepped into the clouds and entered the galaxy. The White-Eyed Wolf and the mad scientist looked at each other and laughed. They also flew into the sky and disappeared into the Star River. Enter the Star River? Wasn't that what they wanted? Because fighting in Green Wind City would definitely expose their identities. But it was different in the Star River. As long as they finished off Dong Hanzong quickly, they could continue to hide their whereabouts and let Dong Qingyuan, Kuanpeng, and the Dragon God think that they were still in the Kuanpeng Sea region. In the depths of the Star River, Dong Tianxiang and Ji Daxiong stood behind Dong Hanzong. One sneered and the other was full of resentment. As Qin Feiyang and the other three stepped into the Star River one after another, the atmosphere instantly became solemn. "Let's do it. It's best to do it with all your strength because you only have one chance." Dong Hanzong looked at Qin Feiyang and the other three with contempt in his eyes. As he spoke, he waved to Dong Tianxiang and the mad scientist. The two understood and quickly retreated into the distance. Looking at this scene, the White-Eyed Wolf's eyes flashed. Whoosh! A dazzling golden light emerged. The next moment, a pair of golden wings appeared behind the White-Eyed Wolf. Golden wings? What kind of beast king is this? Dong Tianxiang and the mad scientist were surprised. Hee. The next moment, the White-Eyed Wolf spread its wings and charged at Dong Hanzong like lightning. Dong Hanzong smiled faintly and didn't take it seriously. However, just as the White-Eyed Wolf was about to reach Dong Hanzong, the momentary time, the will of heaven, and the ability of the golden wings were instantly activated. At that moment, his speed soared. In an instant, he passed Dong Hanzong and went straight to Dong Tianxiang. Dong Hanzong was stunned and immediately saw through the white-eyed wolf's purpose. He turned around and shouted, "How dare you!" In the face of this sudden change, Dong Tianxiang's expression changed. The idea of escaping immediately arose in his mind. But the white-eyed wolf's current speed was equivalent to 2 momentary times, and Dong Tianxiang didn't even have the most basic will of heaven. How could he escape from the white-eyed wolf's palm? In the blink of an eye, the white-eyed wolf landed in front of Dong Tianxiang and grabbed Dong Tianxiang's head. Dong Tianxiang suddenly felt a piercing, murderous aura. His whole body was instantly enveloped by the aura of death. Seeing this, Ji Daxiong hurriedly retreated, his whole body covered in cold sweat. Fortunately, this monster king's target wasn't him. Otherwise, he would definitely be in the same situation as Dong Tianxiang. "You're courting death." Dong Hanzong gloomily stared at the white-eyed wolf. "Yes, I'm courting death. No, I'm courting death. Please grant me my wish." The white-eyed wolf laughed wildly. With a slight force from his 5 fingers, Dong Tianxiang's head exploded like a watermelon on the spot. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Following closely, the white-eyed wolf grabbed Dong Tianxiang's soul again. "You dare to kill me?" Dong Tianxiang roared. "Ignorance is terrible." The white-eyed wolf sighed deeply. Dong Hanzong stared at the white-eyed wolf and said word by word, "If you dare to kill my second uncle, I swear, even if you can ascend to the heavens or enter the earth, I will not let you go." "Are you doubting my courage?" The corners of the white-eyed wolf's mouth lifted, and his 5 fingers suddenly retracted. Ah! With a shrill scream, Dong Tianxiang's soul was destroyed on the spot. Dong Hanzong was dumbfounded on the spot. Ji Daxiong was the same. The Sea Lion Demon King's face was also full of wry smiles. Dong Hanzong's second uncle was killed without the slightest hesitation. These guys' methods were really indescribable. At first, seeing Dong Hanzong's arrival, the Sea Lion Demon King was very nervous. Although he had also seen the methods of Qin Feiyang and the other 2, it was not comprehensive. However, he had long heard of Dong Hanzong's strength, an existence known as invincible. Even if it was the mythical beast Kunping, the dragon god, and Dong Qingyuan, such giants, without a peak-level dominator divine weapon, I'm afraid they would not be Dong Hanzong's opponent. Therefore, he thought that in the face of Dong Hanzong, Qin Feiyang and the other 2 would more or less restrain themselves. But he didn't expect them to be even more arrogant and insolent than before. That look, that attitude, they simply took Dong Hanzong seriously. "I'm sorry!" The white-eyed wolf's arm trembled as he looked at Dong Hanzong and said apologetically, "I accidentally destroyed his divine soul. I'm really sorry, but it's also your fault. Why did you scare me? I'm a very timid person. Once I'm scared, I don't know what's important." The corner of the Sea Lion Demon King's mouth twitched. "You're a timid person? Do you have any shame? If you're a timid person, then is there anyone brave in this world? You clearly killed him on purpose, but now you're blaming Dong Hanzong for scaring you. You should at least consider Dong Hanzong's mood at this moment. After all, you just killed his second uncle." Dong Hanzong clenched his fists. His face was so gloomy that it was scary. "Don't look at me like that. I'm scared. I think there must be a way to remedy it now. Did he leave his divine soul in advance to save his life?" The white-eyed wolf's timid appearance made Madman and Qin Feiyang not know whether to laugh or cry. With Dong Hanzong as his backer, how could Dong Tianxiang split his divine soul in advance to save his life? Wasn't this deliberately provoking Dong Hanzong? Boom! Just as expected. Hearing the white-eyed wolf's words, Dong Hanzong could no longer control the anger and killing intent in his heart. It surged out like a volcanic eruption, sweeping across millions of miles of the galaxy. See, you're here to scare me again. Unfortunately, your family is no longer here. Otherwise, they will definitely suffer again, the white-eyed wolf said innocently. You can go to hell and be buried with my second uncle. Dong Hanzong roared, his teeth bared and his eyes were bloodshot. Boom! In the next moment, the ultimate meaning of the 7 strongest laws appeared, and the will of the heavenly Tao erupted. Terrifying divine power shattered in all directions, as if doomsday had arrived. You should go to hell and reunite with your second uncle. The white-eyed wolf grinned. The golden wings shone brightly, as if a god had descended to the mortal world. At this moment, looking at the white-eyed wolf's divine power, Ji Daxiong couldn't help but feel a sense of regret. Why was he so stupid to do such a stupid thing? Chapter 44-41. Boom! The white-eyed wolf's 6 ultimates also appeared out of nowhere and blasted toward Lin Fan. Both were ultimate mysteries of the strongest laws. Naturally, there was no suspense between 7 and 6. But the white-eyed wolf, relying on its astonishing speed, it instantly appeared behind Dong Hanzong and ruthlessly slapped Dong Hanzong's back. And Dong Hanzong did not even turn his head. His face was full of contempt. Boom! The next moment, a domain appeared. It was the Qian Kuan domain. Runes flashed out one after another. These runes, there were star runes, undying runes, seal runes. Star runes was the innate ability of inverse the universe. It could have the power to move the stars. Undying runes was the innate ability of the undying domain. The physical body entered an undying state. Every time it was seriously injured, its strength would increase by a bit. Seal runes was the innate ability of the sealed god domain. It had the terrifying power of sealing laws, divine power and strength. There was also the invincible runes of the god-slaying domain, which could make the user invincible for an hour. Finally, the clear heaven domain added a layer of will of heaven. Each domain had a heaven-defying ability, but Dong Hanzong's Qian Kuan domain was stronger. The strongest form of the Qian Kuan domain was the ability to open 5 domains. In other words, he alone had 5 domains. The ability of 5 domains, any one of them was heaven-defying, not to mention gathering them in one body. It could be said that Dong Hanzong was indeed an invincible existence. It was no wonder that someone like Ji Daxiong would be so afraid of him. And at this moment, Dong Hanzong opened the strongest form of the Qian Kuan domain, which was enough to prove his killing intent towards the white-eyed wolf. Boom! The white-eyed wolf's palm slapped Dong Hanzong's back. The invincible runes flickered. Not only did the white-eyed wolf not hurt Dong Hanzong at all, it was also hit by Dong Hanzong's backhand. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out. The white-eyed wolf was like a meteorite flying out horizontally. Golden blood. Dong Hanzong was stunned. Ji Daxiong's eyes also widened. This demon king's blood was actually golden? Ji Daxiong was only surprised because he had never seen blood of this color. But Dong Hanzong was different. The image of a golden wolf immediately appeared in his mind. Golden wings, golden blood. It couldn't be such a coincidence. Impressive. If I'm alone, I won't be your match. The white-eyed wolf cackled. Even white-eyed wolf, a person who never admitted defeat, said such words. It could be seen how terrifying Dong Hanzong's combat strength was. Brother? Dong Hanzong was taken aback. Wasn't that the golden-winged wolf king's catchphrase? You are... His eyes immediately widened in anger. Not bad. It's me, your brother. The white-eyed wolf laughed heartily. The heaven-devouring beast was born. This was the true sovereign of all beasts. Once the fighting soul appeared, all beasts would submit to it. At this moment, the Sea Lion Demon King, standing behind Qin Feiyang, and the madman couldn't help but want to kneel down. This was a sense of oppression that came from the depths of his soul. How could it be you? Dong Hanzong looked at the white-eyed wolf's fighting soul with disbelief in his eyes. There's also us. The madman cackled. A monstrous evil aura erupted. This was the aura of the source of all evil. The galaxy instantly turned into an abyss of purgatory. Every corner was filled with terrifying evil power. With a loud clang, the all-evil sword appeared with a peerless edge. This, Dong Hanzong looked at the madman with a dazed expression. When he regained his senses, he looked at Qin Feiyang next to the madman. Since the other two were Madman Mo and Golden-Winged Wolf King, then wouldn't this person be? When he thought of this, his eyes couldn't help but tremble. You didn't expect us to meet again so soon, right? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and directly activated his 3,000 incarnations. The ultimate meaning of the law of life and death and the 6 ultimate laws appeared in the sky. The dual will of heavenly Tao erupted. The terrifying aura swallowed in all directions like a tide. How could this be? Weren't you sealed in the Kunping Sea region? Dong Hanzong was dumbfounded. He never thought that it would be these 3 people. He wasn't afraid of anyone else. Even if it was the Kunpeng dragon god, monarch, divine king, or the human race, he dared to say that he didn't put them in his eyes. But only Qin Feiyang, the madman, the white-eyed wolf. Facing Qin Feiyang and the other 2, he never dared to have such thoughts, because the strength and methods of these 3 people were too terrifying, especially the white-eyed wolf's battle soul. Not only was it the nemesis of all battle souls in the world, but it was also the nemesis of the 5 major domains. Back then, during the battle between the white-eyed wolf and Dong Xan, the white-eyed wolf used the battle soul's innate ability to swallow Dong Xian's sealed god domain. The 5 major domains had a fatal drawback. It could only be activated once a day and could only last for half an hour each time. This drawback was a fatal crisis when facing the white-eyed wolf, because once it was swallowed by the white-eyed wolf, they would temporarily lose this powerful trump card. So now, whether it was Dong Hanzong or Dong Tianqin, they would rather fight to the death with the madman and Qin Feiyang than face the white-eyed wolf. Although the madman and Qin Feiyang were very strong, they didn't have the means to restrain their domains. The only way was to delay until the time of their domains ended. But for ingrates, if they had a disagreement, they could just devour them as easily as blowing off dust. So strong! Why are there so many clones? And these clones can all activate the ultimate meaning. Wait, that seems to be the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death, the kingdom of life and death? It can't be. Could he be Lu Yuntian? But that can't be right. Lu Yuntian's Demon King true body is different from this person's clones. Ji Daxiong looked at Qin Feiyang and the 3,000 clones in shock. Dong Hanzong, this time, we won't give you another chance, the white-eyed wolf laughed. Roar! The battle soul roared and the 4th ability was activated. Dong Hanzong's universe domain suddenly left Dong Hanzong and flew towards the white-eyed wolf's battle soul. Ji Daxiong, quickly help and destroy his battle soul. Dong Hanzong roared. If the domain was swallowed, then he would completely lose the ability to resist. But at this moment, Ji Daxiong was already scared silly by Qin Feiyang and his 3,000 incarnations, tens of thousands of ultimate mysteries. Moreover, even if he wasn't scared silly, he wouldn't dare to make a move. Because he hadn't even grasped the will of heaven. How would he dare to deal with the white-eyed wolf? Useless trash! Dong Hanzong was furious. However, no matter what he did, he couldn't stop the domain from leaving. He could only watch as the domain was swallowed by the white-eyed wolf's battle soul. Dong Hanzong, who had lost his domain, had a gloomy expression. With his current state, it was impossible for him to be a match for Qin Feiyang and the other 2. Suddenly, he stared at the Sea Lion Demon King and said in a deep voice, Are you the one who brought them out of Kuin-Pengsi region? Yes. Could the Sea Lion Demon King still quibble? Of course not, because the truth was right in front of him, so he could only bite the bullet and nod. How dare you betray our divine kingdom? Dong Hanzong shouted sternly. I had no choice. I was dragged onto the pirate ship by them. The Sea Lion Demon King's face was full of helplessness. Good, good, good. Just wait for your death. Dong Hanzong laughed angrily. He never thought that the Demon King of Kuin-Pengsi region would help Qin Feiyang and the other two. Humph! Even if you die, you will die before me. The Sea Lion Demon King snorted. Dong Hanzong, your death is worth it. After all, there has never been anyone who could make the three of us work together and use all our trump cards. The madman laughed. The next moment, the all-evil sword, with its 21,000 ultimate profound, shattered the starry sky and charged towards Dong Hanzong. Ji Daxiong, who was not far away, was scared out of his wits by this terrifying momentum. Boom! In an instant, Dong Hanzong was drowned by the all-evil sword and the 21,000 ultimate profound. You guys can't be arrogant for long. Just you wait. Soon you will die in the hands of the Death God army. I will wait for you in hell, Dong Hanzong roared. Before his voice fell, his body and divine soul were instantly annihilated. Not even a strand of hair was left. He died just like that. Ji Daxiong looked at this scene in a daze, and a stream of water flowed out from his pants. Obviously, he was so scared that he peed his pants. Dong Hanzong was known as an invincible existence in the Central Dynasty. However, at this moment, in front of these three, he didn't even have the strength to fight back. The strength of these three people was a little too terrifying, wasn't it? The Sea Lion Demon King was also shocked. The first of the 5 unparalleled geniuses actually died just like that. The golden-winged Wolf King. He looked at the white-eyed wolf with deep fear in his eyes, because he could see that to be able to kill Dong Hanzong so quickly, it was all thanks to the white-eyed wolf. If it wasn't for the white-eyed wolf's battle soul that swallowed Dong Hanzong's Qinkuan domain, even if frenzied and Qin Feiyang joined forces to fight Dong Hanzong, it would be a tough battle. Swallowing Dong Hanzong's domain, what kind of battle soul was this? It was actually powerful to such an extent. No wonder the three of them dared to sit in the city lord mansion and wait for Dong Hanzong. No wonder the three of them didn't care about the powerful Dong Hanzong. It turned out that they had the means to restrain Dong Hanzong. The white-eyed wolf waved his hand and the battle soul disappeared. The golden wings also retracted. Looking at the Sea Lion Demon King, he said in disdain, "Useless guy, now you've learned something new." The Sea Lion Demon King smiled bitterly. It was more than just learning something new. All of this was simply unheard of. Spare my life for lords. I was confused for a moment and betrayed the 4 lords to find Dong Hanzong. Suddenly, Ji Daxiong ran over and knelt in the air. His face was full of pleading. The white-eyed wolf glanced at Ji Daxiong and said in contempt, "People like you, I really can't be bothered to kill you." "Thank you, Lord, for your mercy." Ji Daxiong was ecstatic. As long as he could survive, it didn't matter how much he ridiculed him. However, you still have to die because you saw this battle. The white-eyed wolf's eyes flashed with killing intent. "Don't!" Ji Daxiong's happy mood instantly fell to the bottom of the valley. "It's useless, because they are Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and Golden-Winged Wolf King. But you really do deserve to be killed." As a sea beast, this king knows the principle of repaying kindness and revenge with hatred. But you, a human being, is actually so heartless, repaying kindness with enmity and betraying us. The Sea Lion Demon King sneered. "What?" Ji Daxiong looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two with a dumbfounded expression. These three were Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and the Golden-Winged Wolf King, whose name shook the 4 great continents and the Central Dynasty. Now you know how stupid your actions are. If you were willing to behave and be honest, you might have gotten a chance to make a meteoric rise. Unfortunately, you have chosen a path of no return. The Sea Lion Demon King laughed and waved his hand, directly killing Ji Daxiong. Not even his corpse remained. Chapter 44-42. In just a few seconds, Dong Hanzong, the leader of the 5 unparalleled geniuses, who was known as an invincible existence, had fallen in the Star River. It was almost equivalent to an instant kill. Although the truth had happened in front of him, the Sea Lion Beast King still felt that it was ridiculous, because, in his opinion, the encounter between Dong Hanzong and Qin Feiyang would definitely lead to an unprecedented battle that would shake the entire Central Dynasty. But he never thought that it would end so quickly. It was so fast that no one could react. "Let's go." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "Where are we going?" The Sea Lion Beast King came back to his senses and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. "If you don't remove the roots, it will grow again when the spring breeze blows." Killing intent flashed in Qin Feiyang's eyes. "You plan to?" The Sea Lion Beast King was surprised. "Yes. Destroy Dong Hanzong's forces." Qin Feiyang stepped out of the Star River and saw 2 people flying towards him. It was an old man and a young man. The young man was Ji Xiaowu, and the old man was a stooped old man. This person was Ji Changming. "Greetings, Lord." Seeing Qin Feiyang and the other 3 coming out of the Star River, Ji Xiaowu quickly bowed. But at the same time, Ji Changming's eyes were filled with disbelief. Why were the 4 of them the ones who came out of the Star River alive? Ji Xiaowu didn't know, but he knew, because it was his idea that Ji Daxiong went to find Dong Hanzong. So when he sensed the battle fluctuations, he already knew that it must be Dong Hanzong and Qin Feiyang's group of 4 fighting. He thought that the ones who came out of the Star River alive would be Dong Hanzong, Dong Tianxiang, and Ji Daxiong, but he never expected that it would be the 4 of them. "You still dare to come to us?" Qin Feiyang looked at the 2 indifferently. "Huh, Lord, what do you mean?" Ji Xiaowu was surprised. Ji Xiaowu's reaction surprised Qin Feiyang's group of 4. Frenzy suspiciously said, "Don't you know?" "What do I know?" Ji Xiaowu had a puzzled look. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 looked at each other. Looking at Ji Xiaowu, he really didn't know what Ji Daxiong was doing. The 4 of them then looked at Ji Zhangming. Ji Xiaowu introduced, "This is my grandfather, Ji Changming." "Grandfather, these 4 are the senior demon kings that I mentioned to you before." "Greetings, sirs." Ji Zhangming looked calm on the surface, but he was panicking inside. This was because he did not know what had happened in the Milky Way. He also didn't know the current situation of Dong Hanzong, Dong Tianxiang, and Ji Daxiong. Actually, he had already thought about it, since Qin Feiyang and the other 2 managed to walk out of the Celestial River alive. Then Dong Hanzong and the other 2 might have already met with a mishap. However, he couldn't believe it. Who was Dong Hanzong? He was the leader of the 5 unparalleled geniuses. He had grasped the ultimate profundities of the 7 ultimate laws and had a heaven-defying domain. With such strength, how could he die in the hands of these 4 archfiend kings? Therefore, in his heart, he held onto a sliver of hope. Dong Hanzong might not have been the one fighting in the Star River. Ji Zhangming. Qin Feiyang sized up Ji Zhangming, his eyes flickering. This person also didn't know, but it was impossible for Ji Daxiong to make such a big decision. White-eyed Wolf's eyes flashed, and he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Don't waste time, let's go." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded and opened a space-time tunnel. He turned around and led White-eyed Wolf and the other 2 away. "Sirs, where are you going?" Ji Xiaowu hurriedly called out, looking a little anxious. He, who didn't know the truth, still regarded Qin Feiyang and the other three as his saviors. However, Qin Feiyang and the other three didn't answer and entered the space-time tunnel without looking back. What's going on? Ji Xiaowu frowned. Let's go to the Star River and have a look. Ji Zhongming watched Qin Feiyang and the other three leave, then looked at the Star River and said in a deep voice. The grandfather and grandson rushed into the Star River, and when they saw the shattered Star River, their faces were filled with shock. Who were they fighting with before? Ji Xiaowu murmured. Dong Hanzong. Ji Zhongming clenched his hands together and no longer hid the anger in his heart. Dong Hanzong. Ji Xiaowu's eyes trembled. That's right. I've seen Dong Hanzong before, and there are remnants of his aura here. Ji Zhongming said gloomily and then released his divine sense, covering the sky and earth. Soon, his body suddenly trembled, and he said in a deep voice, There's also the aura of Dong Tianxiang and your father. What? Ji Xiaowu's face changed, and he also quickly released his divine sense. Sure enough, he caught the remnant aura of Dong Tianxiang and his father in the shattered Star River. How did this happen? This Dong Hanzong is too much. He killed my father. Ji Xiaowu was furious, his eyes filled with anger. Ji Zhongming clenched his hands together and suddenly turned to look at Ji Xiaowu with red eyes. Xiaowu, the one who killed your father is not Dong Hanzong. Huh. Ji Xiaowu turned to look at Ji Zhongming. Who else could it be other than Dong Hanzong? The four monster kings. Ji Zhongming roared. What? How could it be them? Ji Xiaowu's eyes were filled with disbelief. It's my fault. I asked your father to go to Dong Hanzong and ask for forgiveness. Ji Zhongming closed his eyes in pain and briefly explained the matter. So that's how it is. Grandfather, why did you do this? They came to help us out of kindness. What's the difference between this and repaying kindness with enmity? Even if you don't believe them, just let them leave the city lord's mansion. Why do you have to harm them? Ji Xiaowu's body panicked and he felt a little dizzy. He then held his forehead and stared at Ji Zhongming angrily. Xiaowu, I'm sorry. Ji Zhongming's face was full of self-blame as he lowered his head and said, I really didn't expect them to be so strong. Even Dong Hanzong is not their opponent, no. Dong Hanzong might have already died in their hands. Dong Hanzong died in their hands. Ji Xiaowu's body and mind trembled as he scanned the Star River. Although he didn't see it with his own eyes, it was indeed a possibility. Ji Zhongming said gloomily, No matter what, your father must have died in the hands of the four monster kings. This grudge, we have to take revenge. Revenge? When we met them before, why didn't you say revenge? Ji Xiaowu laughed at himself. The four monster kings could even kill Dong Hanzong, let alone the two of them. They're so strong, how could I dare to say it? I can only pretend that I don't know anything. Ji Zhongming cried out in grief. You also know that they're very strong. Then what revenge are you talking about? Isn't taking revenge on them the same as seeking death? Ji Xiaowu said. His whole person instantly fell to the extreme. We indeed don't have the strength, but it doesn't mean that there's no other way. Dong Hanzong is highly regarded by the emperor. As long as we tell the emperor about this, the four monster kings will definitely die. Ji Zhongming sneered. Grandfather! Ji Xiaowu looked at Ji Zhongming in shock and asked, You've already repaid kindness with enmity. Do you want to do it a second time? Then we can't let your father die in vain. Ji Zhongming said angrily. Father's death is all your fault. If you didn't ask father to find Dong Hanzong, would he die now? Grandfather, I'm not blaming you. Grandson just wants to tell you that now we've learned our lesson. We can't continue to make mistakes. Ji Xiaowu exclaimed. Shut up. Ji Zhongming shouted angrily and gloomily said, No matter what, I'll make them pay with blood. Ji Xiaowu said angrily, Grandfather, you're unreasonable. It's really unreasonable. Suddenly, a voice sounded. Ji Zhongming's face changed and hurriedly turned to look behind, only to see four figures appear in the originally empty void. If it wasn't Qin Feiyang and the other three, who else could it be? You guys! Ji Zhongming's eyes trembled and his face was full of fear. Do you want to ask why we're behind you when we've already left? Because we've never left at all. We just want to see if this is Ji Daxiong's idea alone or if someone instigated it behind the scenes. The white-eyed wolf sneered. For lords, please show mercy. Hearing this, Ji Zhongming hurriedly knelt in the void, terrified. You're not as sensible as your grandson Ji Xiao at your age, because he knows the basics of being grateful, the white-eyed wolf said. Ji Zhongming kowtowed and cried, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Please be merciful and give me a way out. We'll give you a way out, but have you ever thought about giving us a way out? The white-eyed wolf sneered and landed in front of Ji Zhongming with a palm. Lord, please spare my life. Ji Xiao's face changed and hurriedly stood in front of Ji Zhongming. The white-eyed wolf raised his eyebrows and shouted, Get out of the way! No, he's my grandfather. I can't leave him to die. I beg the four lords, please give him another chance. I promise that we won't mention this matter again. Ji Xiao knelt and looked at the four of them pleadingly. You're very sensible and filial, but the world is so cruel. If we don't kill him today, he'll harm us tomorrow. He can only blame himself for this. The white-eyed wolf pushed Ji Xiao away, and the power of law appeared in his palm as he slapped at Ji Zhongming's head. No, Ji Xiao roared. This old man can't sit still and wait for death. Ji Zhongming also let out a fierce roar and retreated explosively. 5 ultimate profundities of supreme laws appeared, and he madly attacked the ingrate. At the same time, he opened a space-time passage and prepared to escape. You don't even have the will of the heavenly Tao, and you dare to be so presumptuous? The white-eyed wolf snorted. The ultimate law of death, the 18 layers of hell, appeared and the will of the heavenly Tao erupted. Just one ultimate law of death was enough to destroy Ji Zhongming's 5 ultimate laws without any resistance. This was the terrifying part of the will of the heavenly Tao. Those who had the will of the heavenly Tao and those who didn't were 2 completely different people. Following that, Ji Zhongming let out a shrill scream and died on the spot. His body and soul were destroyed. Grandfather! Ji Xiao was paralyzed in the void, his face full of despair and his body exuding a desolate aura. However, in just a short while he had lost his father and grandfather. For someone of his age, it was undoubtedly a fatal blow. End of chapter. Chapter 44-43. Old Qin. This kid's character are not bad. Let's not kill him. Looking at Ji Xiao, who was lying in the void in despair, he couldn't help but feel compassion. Qin Feiyang looked at Ji Xiao, his eyes flickering. Everyone understood the principle of cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. Now they had killed Ji Daxiong and Ji Changming. More importantly, these 2 were Ji Xiao's close relatives. If they kept Ji Xiao alive, he might become a source of trouble in the future. Although Ji Xiao's character was indeed very good now, people's character would change when faced with great changes. It might even be distorted. Madman said, Don't worry, if he really becomes a source of trouble in the future, I will personally get rid of him. All right, Qin Feiyang nodded. Madman looked at Ji Xiao and said indifferently, Kid, take care of yourself. Life is not easy to come by. Only by living can you have a chance to welcome a better life. Hearing this, Ji Xiao looked up at Madman in a daze. Goodbye, young man. Madman turned around and raised his arm. Without looking back, he waved and smiled before striding out of the Star River. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf also turned and left. Ji Xiao, this chance to live is really rare. You must cherish it. The Sea Lion Demon King looked at Ji Xiao and said meaningfully. Then he turned and left. It was indeed not easy to survive in the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others. However, Ji Xiao wouldn't understand the sentence now. Only when he learned the true identity of Qin Feiyang and the others would he understand how lucky he was today. Outside the Star River, Qin Feiyang turned to look at Sea Lion and asked, "Where is Dong Hanzong's base?" "It is said to be in Hanzongqing." Sea Lion thought for a moment and said, "Hanzongqing? Dong Hanzong. Why are the names so similar?" Madman and the white-eyed wolf were stunned. "I heard that Hanzongqing is named after Dong Hanzong." The Sea Lion Demon King smiled. "How arrogant!" Madman and the white-eyed wolf sneered. "Do you have the coordinates of Hanzongqing?" Qin Feiyang asked. "No, this prince has not been to every place." The Sea Lion Demon King shook his head. "What? You don't even know Hanzongqing? Are you a monster king for nothing?" Madman said with disdain, "Big brother, I have always lived in the Kunpeng Sea region. I rarely come to the continent, okay?" The Sea Lion Demon King was powerless. Madman said, "Then go find Ji Xiao and get the coordinates of Han Sect City." "Why me? I'm not an errand boy." Sea Lion glared at Madman angrily. "Yo, your temper has risen, hasn't it?" Madman stared at the Sea Lion Demon King maliciously. No, no, no. Let's talk things over. It's my honor to run errands for you, three big brothers. I'll go right away." The Sea Lion Demon Monarch chuckled and hurriedly turned around and ran into the Star River. This guy really knows how to steer with the wind. Madman shook his head and smiled bitterly. Only such a person can live longer. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Soon, the Sea Lion Demon Monarch was about to come to the coordinates. The four of them opened a space-time tunnel and directly descended above Han Sect City. "It's quite big." Madman glanced at Han Sect City and said in surprise, "Of course. After all, this is Dong Hanzong's base." Dong Hanzong is not only the strongest of the younger generation, but even the older generation has to retreat when they see him. Therefore, many people come here, hoping to get his favor and appreciation. Basically, as long as he values someone, they will have a promising future. The Sea Lion Demon Monarch explained. "I really didn't expect him to have such influence in the Central Dynasty." Madman shook his head. But thinking about it carefully, it's reasonable. With the universe domain, even big shots like the Kunpeng, the Dragon God, and Dong Qingyuan wouldn't be his match without a peak dominator divine weapon. This is enough to show his strength and status in the Central Dynasty, Qin Feiyang said. Madman and the white-eyed wolf nodded. No, but suddenly, the Sea Lion Demon Monarch's pupils shrank. What's wrong? The three of them were shocked. The Sea Lion Demon Monarch scanned the city and said in a deep voice, "Look, why is there no one in Han Sect City?" Empty? Qin Feiyang and the other two were stunned as they scanned the entire city. Before they could react, there really wasn't a single person in such a huge city. What was going on? Could it be that they knew we would come, so they moved in advance? But in such a short time, it's impossible to move all of them. From the time they killed Dong Hanzong and the other two until now, it had only been a short while. Even if he had wasted some time killing Ji Zhangming, it hadn't been that long. How could it have become an empty city? Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and said in a deep voice, "There is a way to move everyone in a very short time." What way? The three of them were suspicious. Spatial divine item. As long as we put everyone into the spatial divine item, we can evacuate Han Sect City as quickly as possible. But it doesn't make sense. The people of Han Sect City didn't know we were coming at all. Why would they move in advance? Wait, could it be that Ji Xiaowu tipped them off? The white-eyed wolf was surprised. It can't be him. We got the coordinates from him and immediately rushed to Han's sect city. If he tipped them off, even if everyone here entered someone's spatial divine item, they wouldn't be able to move in time. Madman shook his head. That makes sense. The white-eyed wolf nodded. What was going on? Clang! At the next moment, a sword light swept out from the city below, tearing through the void and the earth as it charged towards Qin Feiyang and the other three. The four of them were shocked and hurriedly looked over. They saw a golden sword light that emitted a sharp light that could destroy the world. Facing this sword light, even Qin Feiyang and the other two could feel a fatal crisis, not to mention the Sea Lion Demon King. His entire body was instantly shrouded in the shadow of death, and its speed was quite fast. It arrived in an instant. Qin Feiyang and the other three didn't even have a chance to fight back. Get out of the way. Without daring to hesitate, Madman pushed away Qin Feiyang and the other two, and the sword Qi rushed over. Boom! Blood instantly dyed the sky red. Senior brother, little Madman. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf roared. Whoosh! A wisp of evil aura swept out in front of Qin Feiyang. Go! At the same time, a thought was transmitted into Qin Feiyang's mind. It was Madman's voice. That's right. This wisp of evil aura was Madman's remnant soul. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent Madman's remnant soul to the Black Tortoise realm. Then he swept up the white-eyed wolf and the Sea Lion Demon King, activated the dual will of the heavens and instant time, and left without looking back. Where do you think you're going? Accompanied by a cold voice, space-time passages appeared in all directions, and one figure after another kept coming out. These people, men and women, old and young, wore different clothes, but without exception, all of them had grasped the will of the heavens. So many people came to encircle us. Why does it feel like a trap? The white-eyed wolf's face couldn't help but turn pale. That's right, this is a trap. Before he finished speaking, another voice sounded, and this voice came from the Broken Han sect city. Qin Feiyang and the other two turned their heads and saw a golden figure step into the sky. His face was blurry, and he wore a golden dragon robe and held a battle sword in his hand. The battle sword was about 1 meter long. Its entire body shone with golden light, as if it was made of gold. The sword hilt had a golden dragon engraved on it, and it emitted a terrifying sharpness. This is... Qin Feiyang and the other two stared at the golden battle sword, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. The aura of this battle sword had far surpassed a pinnacle sovereign weapon. Obviously, this was a legendary dominator divine weapon. This scene made Qin Feiyang and the other two's mood fall to the bottom. Legendary grade dominator, grade divine weapons were no joke. A mid-level sovereign weapon was equivalent to 10 low-level sovereign weapons. A high-level sovereign weapon was equivalent to 100 low-level sovereign weapons. A pinnacle sovereign weapon was equivalent to 1,000 low-level sovereign weapons. A legendary sovereign weapon that surpassed the pinnacle sovereign weapon was equivalent to 10,000 low-level sovereign weapons. If one didn't have 3,000 incarnations who could fight against a sovereign weapon of this level. Shua, Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at the man in the dragon robe. Since it was a legendary sovereign weapon, wasn't this person the emperor of the Central Dynasty? That's right. He's the emperor of the Central Dynasty. The sovereign weapon in his hand is called the Emperor's Sword. It's the only legendary sovereign weapon in the Central Dynasty. The Sea Lion Archfiend King said. Emperor's Sword, Emperor, Qin Feiyang murmured. What should we do? The people who are coming to surround us are all experts with will of the heavens from the top 10 families of the Central Dynasty. And from the looks of it, there are more people on the way. The The sea lion arch-fiend king panicked. Experts with will of the heavens from the top 10 families, Qin Feiyan and the white-eyed wolf, looked at the people coming to attack them. These people were all dressed in luxurious clothes, and each of them had an extraordinary aura. I didn't expect you to be able to escape from the Kunping Sea region without anyone noticing. Unfortunately, you won't be able to escape today. An old man in purple spoke. His will of the heavens erupted, and various ultimates appeared. Break out of the encirclement. Since the Emperor and the top 10 families already know that we are in Hanzhong City, then the 9th and 8th teams that are blocking the Kunping Sea region must have received the news as well. They will immediately come to support us. The white-eyed wolf said telepathically, "They must not fight with these people, or they would be surrounded." Phew! Qin Feiyan took a deep breath and looked at the Emperor. Although he had a lot of doubts, now was not the time to ask. Just as the white-eyed wolf said, they must break out of the encirclement immediately. Otherwise, they would be in a situation where there was only a slim chance of survival. Boom! 3,000 clones were activated. The law of life and death, the 6 supreme laws, and the dual will of the heavens erupted. The Emperor's pupils shrank when he saw the scene. Although this person was hateful, his strength was not to be underestimated. Even the Emperor's sword in his hand, which was a legendary sovereign weapon, could not compete with him. End of chapter. Chapter 44-44. At the same time, seeing this, the supreme experts of the 10 lineal families also looked a little flustered. Don't retreat. I have already informed the 9th and 8th teams of the Death God Army. They will be here soon to support. The Emperor said, "That's right. We have already split our souls in advance. What are we afraid of? Even if we have to sacrifice our lives, we have to stop them." Someone from the 10 lineal families shouted. Right now, there were already more than 2,000 experts of the heavenly path who had rushed here. In other words, Qin Feiyan and the other 2 were surrounded by more than 2,000 experts of the heavenly path. Bang! Everyone immediately activated the will of the heavenly path and the ultimate profound meaning. More than 2,000 people with more than 10,000 ultimate profound meanings. It was quite terrifying. However, Qin Feiyan did not take it to heart. He who had 2 wills of the heavenly path and the ultimate profound meaning of the laws of life and death could completely crush them. True enough, when the 21,000 ultimate profound meanings of the 3,000 incarnations charged in all directions, it would be a devastating situation. The ultimate profound meaning of thousands of people of the 10 lineal families was as vulnerable as deadwood. So powerful. The power of the 2 wills of the heavenly path and the ultimate profound meaning of the laws of life and death shocked everyone present. Bang! Immediately after, Qin Feiyan's ultimate profound meaning was to kill the Emperor and the 10 lineal families. If there were no accidents, he would definitely be able to kill his way out. However, there were always some things in the world that went against one's wishes. You are indeed very powerful, but you are still ants in the end. The Emperor smiled contemptuously, and a wave of origin energy rolled out from his body. That's right. It was not a wisp, nor was it a wisp. It was a wisp of origin energy. This wisp of origin energy was like a torrent sweeping in all directions. Wherever it went, Qin Feiyan's ultimate profound meaning, be it the laws of life and death or the 6 supreme laws, were instantly shattered like rotten wood. Damn you! The white-eyed wolf cursed. How could they fight with so much origin energy? The 9th team of the Death God Army is here to help. The 8th team of the Death God Army is here to help. Right at this moment, accompanied by an earth-shattering battle cry, space-time tunnels appeared one after another, and 20,000 members of the Death God Army poured out like a tide. It's over. It's all over. The Sea Lion Demon King looked at this scene in horror. The Emperor, the Emperor's sword, the origin energy, the supreme experts of the 10 great clans now. Even the Death God Legion's 9th and 8th squads had rushed over. In the face of such a terrifying lineup, even if Qin Feiyang and the other two were heaven-defying, they would still die here today. Little Qin Zi, what should we do? Not to mention the Sea Lion Demon King. Even the White-Eyed Wolf was scared. Although Qin Feiyang still had the Eye of Heaven, and although he also had the 4th innate ability, it was definitely not enough to deal with the origin power in the hands of an emperor. Qin Feiyang's eyes were also extremely solemn. He transmitted his voice. I can feel it. The inner demons are also coming this way. Even if the inner demons come, they won't be able to help us. White-Eyed Wolf thought to himself. If he didn't have the origin energy, he might have been able to break out of the encirclement if he joined forces with the inner demons and Big Cousin. But now, the origin energy in the hands of the Emperor could wipe out all the hope in their hearts. Suddenly, angry voices rang out one after another. So it was you, the Demon King, who took them out of the Kunping Sea region. Preposterous! How dare you betray our Scandinavia and betray His Majesty? The Sea Lion Demon King looked in the direction of the voices. It turned out that they were the dozen or so people he met on the coastline. Emperor, it's this Demon King who took Qin Feiyang and the other two out of the Kunping Sea region. We were all deceived by him. The dozen or so people immediately looked at the Emperor and said. Hearing this, the Emperor looked up at the Sea Lion Demon King. Although the Emperor's expression couldn't be seen, the Sea Lion Demon King could clearly feel a terrifying, murderous intent. This made him even more terrified. Qin Feiyang let out a long breath, turned to look at the Emperor and said, Since we're going to die, let's die with an explanation. How did you know we were coming to Hanzhong City? It's all thanks to Dong Hanzhong. The Emperor said. Dong Hanzhong? Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other. Wasn't Dong Hanzhong already dead? How was he going to inform the Emperor? The Emperor waved his hand, and a purple-clothed young man immediately appeared beside him. Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at the purple-clothed young man in disbelief. If this young man wasn't Dong Hanzhong, who else could it be? You must be very surprised, right? I knew it. Ha ha! Dong Hanzhong laughed, his eyes full of sarcasm. What the hell is going on? The White-Eyed Wolf clenched his hands. At that time, they clearly saw Dong Hanzhong die in the Star River with their own eyes. I have to admit that you guys are really powerful. You actually subdued the Demon King and took you out of the Kunping Sea region without anyone knowing. If it weren't for my foresight, I would have died in your hands this time. Dong Hanzhong sneered. You left your divine soul in advance to save your life? Qin Feiyang frowned. Yes, Dong Hanzhong nodded. How did you know that the people in Qingfeng City were us? The White-Eyed Wolf was puzzled. I didn't know. Dong Hanzhong shook his head. You didn't know? If you didn't know, why did you leave your divine soul in advance? The White-Eyed Wolf's brows were tightly knitted. I think you misunderstood. I didn't leave my divine soul when I went to Qingfeng City, but when I learned that you broke into the Kunping Sea region. Because I know your strength, and I also know that you want to kill me. If I let you leave the Kunping Sea region, you will definitely find a chance to deal with me. So when I learned that you broke into the Kunping Sea region, I had already split my divine soul to avoid being caught off guard. But I didn't expect that it would come in handy. Dong Hanzhong smiled. Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other. It turned out that this person had already split his divine soul at that time. They didn't expect him to be so cautious. He was really a difficult guy to deal with. When you killed me in Qingfeng City, I knew at that time that you would definitely not expect that I left my divine soul in advance. Moreover, according to my understanding of you, you will definitely eliminate the root of the problem in Hanzhong City. So I told His Majesty to set up this trap and wait for you to walk into it. As it turned out, you really didn't let me down. You came to Hanzong City so quickly." Dong Hanzong sneered. Qin Feiyang looked at Dong Hanzong with a complicated look in his eyes. Putting everything else aside, Dong Hanzong's mind was really admirable. If he could recruit him, he would definitely become his right-hand man and the biggest threat to the Divine Kingdom. Unfortunately, this person was too loyal to the Divine Kingdom. Indeed, he didn't expect that Dong Hanzong would split his divine soul in advance, because on the surface, they were still trapped in the Kunpeng Sea region, and this time they dealt with Dong Hanzong in the name of the Monster King of the Kunpeng Sea region. So no one would expect that they were Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and the Golden-Winged Wolf King. But they didn't expect that this person had already left his divine soul when he learned that they broke into the Kunpeng Sea region. And now they were caught off guard. "Now you know. You can die in peace," Dong Hanzong sneered. "Amazing. You are the most terrifying opponent I have ever faced in my life." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Same to you. You are also the opponent I admire the most. Although we are in different positions, I am really happy to be able to fight with you for so long." Dong Hanzong laughed, but he couldn't hide the smug look on his face. Last time in the 4 great continents he lost, and it was a crushing defeat. But this time he won. Furthermore, it was a complete victory. Swish! At this moment, 2 more figures appeared in the sky. Who else could it be but the inner demons and Lu Jiajin? Dong Hanzong raised his head and looked at the inner demons, then looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 2, and said with a smile, "They are also here. You have no way to survive." So many people. After the inner demons and Lu Jiajin arrived, they glanced at everyone present, and their expressions were slightly stunned. The white-eyed wolf looked at Dong Hanzong and sneered secretly. "Little brother, little Jean, come and help us." "Are you kidding me? There are so many people. How can we help you?" The inner demons thought. "What's going on? Aren't they usually smart? Why are they surrounded by the emperor now? How about this? Let's challenge them. Maybe we can find a chance to help them escape." Lu Jiajin's eyes flashed, and he transmitted his voice to the inner demons. "That's the only way." The inner demons sighed helplessly and looked at the emperor. "This Qin Feiyang has tormented us in the 4 great continents. I can't take this lying down. Let me fight with him first." "No. It's not easy to get this opportunity. We must get rid of them immediately." Before the emperor spoke, Dong Hanzong spoke first. "Did I talk to you? Idiot, get out of my way." The inner demons immediately scowled and spoke without mercy. In his eyes, there was no such thing as a peerless genius. They were all trash. "You!" Dong Hanzong immediately glared at the inner demons angrily. The emperor said lightly, "Dong Hanzong is right. We can't drag this on. These people must be eliminated immediately." The inner demons raised his eyebrows. "It seems that we can only fight to the death with them." Lu Jiajin secretly snorted and transmitted his voice with a smile. "Little cousin, are you ready?" The moment we returned to the Divine Kingdom, we were ready to fight to the death. We just didn't expect it to come so soon. Qin Feiyang secretly laughed. "Returned to the Divine Kingdom?" Lu Jiajin was stunned and asked suspiciously, "You went back?" "Yes. Not long after you returned to the Central Dynasty, we went back and also to the Great Qin." Qin Feiyang secretly replied. "Is everyone okay?" Lu Jiajin secretly asked. "Everyone is fine. Everyone knows that you're not dead. They're very happy and looking forward to your return." Qin Feiyang secretly laughed. Hearing this, the demon couldn't help but think of many familiar figures. Her heart couldn't help but ache. She thought to herself, "If that's the case, then we can't die here. We must all return alive." "That's right. We must all go back alive." The white-eyed wolf clenched his fists. They had walked such a difficult path before. They could do it now. End of chapter. Chapter 44-45. The Emperor of the Central Dynasty, the top 10 families, the 2 squads of the Death God Army, the legendary Sovereign Divine Weapon, and the even more terrifying Origin Force. This lineup was enough to make anyone despair. The atmosphere was extremely heavy. The Sea Lion Demon King was so scared that his face turned pale. But Qin Feiyang, the inner demons, Lu Jijin, and the White-Eyed Wolf had endless fighting spirit in their hearts. Because they had a belief in their hearts. No matter how difficult it was, they had to survive. Die. Even the Heavenly King can't save you today. Dong Hanzong stared at Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf and laughed. Bang! Accompanied by a terrifying aura, everyone around them activated their ultimate profound meaning. One had to know, there were more than 20,000 people here. Even if each person had 6 ultimate profound meanings, there were more than 100,000 of them. One could imagine how terrifying this momentum was. But the most terrifying thing was the Emperor's sword and Origin Force in the Emperor's hand, especially the Origin Force. The terrifying lethality was almost suffocating. Let's fight. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath. 3,000 incarnations appeared. The White-Eyed Wolf also activated his battle soul. The lunatic's all-evil sword also suddenly roared out. In the sky, the inner demons also activated their Demon King, True Body. Each Demon King True Body was 10,000 feet tall, like an ancient giant with monstrous, demonic aura. However, in the eyes of the Emperor and the others, the inner demons activated their Demon King True Body to help kill Qin Feiyang and the other 2. In fact, this was also the effect that the inner demons wanted. The reason why he had been hiding his identity was that he wanted to catch the Emperor and the others off guard with lightning speed. In this way, he might be able to kill his way out. The battle was about to start. Bang! However, at this moment, a green foxtail fell from the sky. That's right, this was a green foxtail. However, this dog's tail grass was different from ordinary dog's tail grass. Its entire body shone with divine light, as dazzling as the scorching sun. Moreover, it exuded a destructive power. This is... Qin Feiyang and the White-Eyed Wolf stared at the green foxtail with a trace of unconcealable surprise in their eyes, because they were all too familiar with the green foxtail grass. It was the Soteria grass that the mysterious young man often held in his mouth. What is this? The Emperor and the others were bewildered. A single strand of green foxtail grass actually made them feel a great threat. The descendants of Qin Batian are not people you can bully at will. A lazy voice sounded. Following closely, the mysterious young man yawned as he walked out of the void. The snow python, which had long transformed into a divine dragon, also seemed to be infected. It laid on the young man's shoulder and looked sleepy. Qin Batian. The Emperor enunciated each word clearly, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Dong Hanzong, one of the 10 direct descendants of the Dong clan, and 2 of their squads were also filled with murderous intent. Looks like we don't have to fight to the death. Lu Jiajin smiled inwardly. The inner demons also had a hint of a smile in their eyes. They already knew the situation of this young man. As long as this young man made a move, all the problems would be solved. I didn't expect you all to know me. Looks like I'm quite famous in the Central Dynasty. The young man yawned. It seemed like he hadn't woken up for a day. Boom! And in the next moment, the green foxtail grass that was floating in the void suddenly shot out a dazzling 5-colored divine light. Origin energy. That's right. This was the origin energy hidden in the green foxtail grass. When this origin energy exploded, the world instantly fell into a dead silence. It was as if everything had stopped at this moment. In the next moment, This origin energy erupted with world-destroying might, crushing all the ultimate mysteries as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. One had to know. The ultimate mysteries of the 2 squads of the 10 direct descendants of the Dong clan added up to more than 100,000, and they all contained the will of the heavenly Tao. But such a terrifying number of ultimate mysteries was completely unable to resist the young man's origin energy. This showed how terrifying the young man's origin energy was. Finally, the young man's origin energy blasted toward the origin energy in the king's hand. They were both origin energy, but the moment they met, the difference in strength was obvious. The king's origin energy was shattered on the spot, and he had no power to fight back. So strong! The inner demons were dumbfounded. This was the first time the Sea Lion Demon King saw the young man make a move, and he was so shocked that he couldn't even close his mouth. This was too strong. He alone could wipe out thousands of troops. Boring. The young man shook his head and then waved his hand. All the origin energy quickly returned to the green foxtail grass like a tide. Immediately after, he held the green foxtail grass in his mouth, swept up Qin Feiyang and the other 2, and broke through the sky at lightning speed. When the emperor and the others came back to their senses, the group of 4 had disappeared without a trace. What are you all waiting for? Hurry up and chase after them, the emperor roared. Everyone quivered. They immediately activated the momentary time and chased after him madly. They were really shocked. This Qin Batian was just a descendant of the human sovereign. How could he have such a terrifying origin energy? The emperor's face was as calm as water. He looked at the inner demons and said in a deep voice, Lu Yuntian, you have 2 wills of the heavenly path. Go and help them. When we went to kill Dong Qingyuan, you came out to stop us. Now that we are in trouble, you want us to help. Why? The inner demons sneered. Now is not the time to throw a tantrum, the emperor shouted coldly. Humph! The inner demons snorted and reluctantly activated 2 wills of the heavenly path. In the momentary time, he swept up Lu Jiajin and quickly broke through the sky. 2 wills of the heavenly path were indeed extraordinary. In just a few blinks of the eye, they overtook the 10 lineal families and the 2 squads. They ran at the front and kept closing in on Qin Feiyang and the other 3. The young man sensed the aura of the inner demons and said indifferently, Do you want to shake them off? No need. I have something to ask them. Qin Feiyang shook his head. However, immediately, Qin Feiyang looked at the young man in a daze. Shake off the inner demons? This guy was talking in his sleep, right? The inner demons had 2 wills of the heavenly path. Even he didn't have the confidence to shake off the inner demons. Where did this young man get his confidence from? At the same time, hearing the conversation between Qin Feiyang and the young man, the Sea Lion Demon King was slightly stunned. He turned his head and looked suspiciously at the 2 inner demons who were chasing after them. Did these 2 know Qin Feiyang? After a while, the inner demons and Lu Jiajin caught up. That boy, we meet again, the inner demons said to the young man. The young man turned his head and looked away as if he didn't know him. Still arrogant, the inner demons sneered. But this time it was all thanks to the young man. Otherwise, this battle would have boded ill rather than well. What's wrong with you? Why is Dong Qingyuan still alive and kicking? The white-eyed wolf asked secretly. There's nothing we can do. The emperor has been protecting him. At that time, he even asked us to return the peak-level sovereign divine weapon to Dong Qingyuan. The inner demons were helpless. Although they were communicating secretly, they were always some distance away. What? Return it to Dong Qingyuan? We snatched it with our own ability. Why should we return it to him? The white-eyed wolf raised his eyebrows. I definitely won't return it to him. You must be kidding. You want me to return it to him when it's already in my hands? Is that possible? The inner demons sneered secretly. Qin Feiyang asked telepathically, "So now, have you gained the Emperor's trust?" "Yes. Back in the 4 great continents, the show we planned was very successful. And because of his favoritism toward Dong Qingyuan, the Emperor seems to feel a little guilty, so he's especially good to us now. He even wants us to rebuild the 10th team of the Death God army." The inner demons sneered secretly. "Rebuild the 10th team?" Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were stunned. "That's right. The Emperor has this plan. He also wants us to be the commander and deputy commander of the 10th team." The inner demons said. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he asked secretly, "How much do you know about the Death God army?" "Almost all of it. The situation of the 2nd and 10th teams is the same. Apart from the commander and deputy commander, there are 10,000 members." The inner demons said. Qin Feiyang was shocked when he heard this. It was indeed terrifying. "What about the first team?" the white-eyed wolf secretly asked. "The first team only has 5,000 people. However, these 5,000 people have mastered all the ultimate profound meanings." The inner demons said in a deep voice. "All the ultimate profound meanings?" The white-eyed wolf was shocked. "That's right. It's all the ultimate profound meanings except for the laws of light and darkness and the laws of life and death." The inner demons said. "Including the ordinary laws?" The white-eyed wolf was surprised. "Nonsense. All the ultimate profound meanings naturally include the ultimate profound meanings of the ordinary laws." The inner demons rolled his eyes. This wolf cub's comprehension ability was really terrible. "Damn, these people are amazing." The white-eyed wolf was shocked. Qin Feiyang secretly said, "Since we have already found out about the Death God army, there is no need for you to continue to follow them." "I think so too, but Big Cousin said that we should continue to lurk around the Emperor. Firstly, we can gather information. Secondly, we can wait for an opportunity to catch them off guard." The inner demons pursed his lips. "Is there a problem with my suggestion?" Lu Jiajin secretly laughed. "I didn't say there is a problem. I just don't want to continue hiding like this. It's uncomfortable all over." The inner demons said. "Actually, this is also good. Just like today, if you guys suddenly attacked, you can completely catch them off guard." Qin Feiyang secretly smiled. "Don't just talk about us. How did you guys break into the Central Dynasty?" The inner demons was suspicious. "Even Dong Hanzong knows about this. Why don't you guys know about it?" This made Qin Feiyang quite surprised. "We have been in seclusion to integrate the ultimate profound meanings you gave us, so we didn't pay attention to the outside world. If it weren't for the Emperor personally sending us a message to come to Hanzong City to encircle and annihilate you guys, we wouldn't know that you have entered the Central Dynasty." The inner demons said. "I see." Qin Feiyang suddenly smiled and explained, "We entered the Central Dynasty with the help of Lin Yi." Immediately, he briefly explained the situation to them. End of this chapter. Chapter 44-46. I see. The inner demons and Lu Jiejin were suddenly enlightened. They didn't expect that even Lin Yi's battle soul had evolved. "Are you sure that there is no eye of reincarnation in the Divine Kingdom?" Qin Feiyang asked. "During the period when we came back, we investigated this matter again. There is no such thing. Originally, we were wondering if it was hidden in the Death God Legion. But as we gradually understood the Death God Legion, there is no eye of reincarnation." Lu Jiajin transmitted his voice. "Strange. Where is this eye of reincarnation?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "This matter can't be rushed. We have to wait for the ancestor to appear and let him find it himself. It's a top priority. You have to strengthen your strength quickly. especially you, Qin Feiyang. Having 3,000 incarnations and mastering one more profound meaning is equivalent to having 3,000 profound meanings in battle. The inner demons secretly said. These words were true. Qin Feiyang mastered one more profound meaning. 3,000 incarnations meant 3,000 profound meanings. Moreover, all of them had dual will of heaven's path. Combat power was doubled. I know, now that our whereabouts have been exposed and the situation of the Death God Legion has been investigated, we really have to go into seclusion to cultivate. Qin Feiyang nodded. The inner demons rolled his eyes and smiled. As for the Emperor, you can start with his daughter. His daughter? Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were taken aback. Yes, for his daughter, he treasures her very much. The inner demons smirked. This is a good choice, Qin Feiyang murmured. Capturing the Emperor's daughter was equivalent to strangling the Emperor's neck. Not to mention making the Emperor compromise. At least he would be cautious. When facing them, he would also be timid. In addition, if you want to hide, you can go to Myriad Demons Valley. The inner demons said again. Myriad Demons Valley? Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were taken aback. Myriad Demons Valley is a forbidden area in the Central Dynasty. Normal people wouldn't dare to set foot here. But for a madman, the Myriad Demons Valley might be heaven. The inner demons cackled. Heaven? Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were even more confused. The Myriad Demons Valley was clearly a forbidden area. But why did this lunatic think it was heaven? You'll understand when you get there. After the inner demons finished speaking, he slapped his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. He instantly entered a weakened state. Lu Jiajin was the same. What's the situation? The Sea Lion Demon King looked at this scene in astonishment. He was not included in their conversation, so he was still unaware of the relationship between Qin Feiyang and the inner demons. Be careful, Qin Feiyang secretly instructed. He activated the dual will of the heavenly Tao and the instant of time and took the initiative to sweep up the young man, the white-eyed wolf, and the Sea Lion Demon King. He tore through the air without looking back. I've finally escaped this calamity. Lu Jiajin stopped in the void and said with a smile. However, this lesson has also served as a wake-up call for us. The inner demons' eyes flashed coldly. Dong Hanzong. Lu Jiajin asked. That's right. This person is too big of a threat to us. We must find a chance to get rid of him. The inner demons' eyes flashed with killing intent. If they didn't get rid of him as soon as possible, this person would sooner or later become a disaster. After a long while, only then did the 10 great clans and the 2 small squads catch up with them. Where are they? A fat man with a big belly asked as he looked at Lu Jiajin and his companion. This person was the commander of the 9th squad, Dong Qian. They ran away. The inner demons said lightly. Ran away. Don't you control the dual will of the heavenly Tao? How could you let them run away? Another middle-aged man spoke. This man was more muscular. He had a buzz cut and was more than 9 meters tall. He looked a little tough, and he was the commander of the 8th squad, Dong Kuan. Are you stupid? I have the dual will of the heavenly Tao. Does Qin Feiyang not have it? Moreover, that Qin Batian has the origin force. If we didn't act quickly, we might have died in the hands of Qin Batian. The inner demons looked at Dong Kuan coldly. Dong Kuan raised his eyebrows. The Emperor, that fool, shouldn't have let us chase after them. Why don't you think about it? Even his source origin energy is no match for Qin Batian, let alone us. Isn't this just courting death? The inner demons snorted coldly. The group of people was stunned. The Emperor was a fool. How dare he say this? Although they agreed with the inner demons' words, asking them to chase after Qin Batian and the others was tantamount to courting death. They couldn't say such disrespectful words. perhaps in the entire Central Dynasty. Only this Lu Yuntian dared to be so presumptuous. "Who are you calling a fool?" Suddenly, an angry roar sounded. They saw the emperor holding the emperor's sword, angrily rushing over. Dong Hanzong also followed by the side. "Greetings, your majesty." Everyone bowed one after another, not daring to make a sound. Only the inner demons and Lu Jiajin didn't react. The two of them seemed to glance at Dong Hanzong intentionally or unintentionally. Dong Hanzong noticed the look in their eyes and couldn't help but feel a little flustered. "I asked you a question," the emperor said angrily. Not only did they not catch up with them, but they also scolded him behind his back. This was simply outrageous. "Did I say that? Dong Qian, Dong Kuan, and you old dogs of the 10 lineal families, did you hear what I said?" The inner demons had an innocent look. "Lu Yuntian, who are you calling an old dog?" "Don't be too presumptuous, I'll tell you. The old dogs of the 10 lineal families, no, the people of the 10 lineal families all glared at the inner demons. Whoever speaks is an old dog." The inner demons bared his teeth, not afraid at all. The people of the 10 lineal families all gnashed their teeth in anger. This was simply outrageous. They had no morals of respecting the old and loving the young at all. Seeing this scene, the emperor couldn't help but feel helpless in his heart. He loved and hated the inner demons and Lu Jiajin at the same time. Their talent, methods, courage, and perseverance were all top-notch, but only their character and temper were infuriating. Dong Qian, Dong Kuan, find them immediately. Even if we have to turn the Central Dynasty upside down, we must find them. Also, inform Dong Qingyuan immediately and ask him to bring the other teams back to support us," the emperor said in a deep voice. "Yes, your majesty." Dong Qian and Dong Kuan bowed in response. The inner demons looked at the emperor and said, "I'm not trying to pour cold water on you, but even if you find them, do you have a way to deal with Qin Batian?" These words were testing the emperor's bottom line. If the emperor said that he had a way, it meant that he had other tricks up his sleeve. If he said that there was no way, then he could be completely relieved. "You don't need to worry about whether there is a way or not." The emperor glared fiercely at the inner demons. He didn't answer directly, nor did he respond indirectly. No one knew what he was thinking. What? Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and Golden Winged Wolf King have already broken into the Central Dynasty? No way! You're definitely not talking about Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and Golden Winged Wolf King from the Sky Cloud Realm, right? Nonsense. Besides the Sky Cloud Realm, does our divine kingdom still have Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and Golden Winged Wolf King? Is this true? Don't joke with me. In less than an hour, the major cities of the Central Dynasty were in an uproar. Everyone was talking about this matter. "Who's joking with you?" A friend of mine in Hanzong City just sent me a message. He said that Qin Feiyang and the other two not only killed Dong Hanzong's second uncle, Dong Tianxiang, but also almost killed Dong Hanzong. If Dong Hanzong hadn't set up a divine soul in advance to save his life, he might have been a corpse now. So powerful. Even Dong Hanzong wasn't their match. It's hard to believe, but it's the truth. The most exaggerated thing is that the emperor personally led the 10 major families and 2 small teams of the Death God army to encircle them in Hanzong City, but they still managed to escape. Damn, are these people going to overturn the heavens? People were shocked. The prince personally led the 10 major families and 2 small teams of the Death God army, but they still couldn't kill these people? It was really hard to believe. Similarly, it was also because of the intrusion of Qin Feiyang and the others that the mysterious Death God army was exposed to the world. Now, many people in the Central Dynasty already knew about the Death God army. Green Wind City. What did you say? Ji Xiaowu sat by the lake, looking sad, but suddenly a maid came to find him and told him the news outside. He immediately stood up, turned around, and stared at the maid, his eyes full of shock. I don't know if it's true or not, but now everyone outside is talking about it. The maid said, I really didn't expect. It's them. Ji Xiao murmured and looked back at the calm lake. What was even more unexpected was that Dong Hanzong was still alive. He finally understood what the Sea Lion Monster King had said before he left. It was really true. It was not easy for him to survive in the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others. The maidservant asked, Young city lord, are we going to take care of this matter or not? Intervene? Tell me, how should we intervene? Ji Xiaowu laughed at himself. The maid said, Assist the Death God army to find their whereabouts. Assist the Death God army. Ji Xiaowu shook his head and stared at the lake for a moment. Suddenly, as if he had made a difficult decision, he turned to the maid and said, Tell everyone to disband from now on. What? Disband? The maid was slightly stunned and looked at Ji Xiaowu in surprise. Yes, disband. There's nothing I can do. If we don't leave now, Dong Hanzong will definitely find trouble with us. At that time, not only will I suffer, but you will also suffer with me. Concealing our identities and living in seclusion in the mountains is our best choice. Ji Xiaowu sighed. But you didn't know the identity of these 3 people before. Even if they find out, they can't convict you. The maid frowned. You're too naive. Does Dong Hanzong need a reason to deal with us? Let's go. There are a lot of resources in the warehouse. Tell everyone to take some. After all, you have been in the city lord's mansion for many years. Ji Xiaowu clenched his hands and promised, If I can rise in the future and become an overlord, I will find you and bring you back. What about you? The maid looked at Ji Xiaowu. Me. Ji Xiaowu looked up at the sky and smiled. The central dynasty is so big, there must be a place for me. End of chapter. Chapter 44-47. I didn't expect our young city lord to be so kind-hearted. You can't even save your own life, and you're still thinking about your subordinates. Suddenly, a voice full of sarcasm sounded. Who is it? Ji Xiaowu was shocked. He looked up and saw 10 figures slowly walking out from the lake on the opposite side. It's you guys. Why did you come back? Ji Xiaowu glared at the 10 of them, because these 10 people were their original consecrators. The 10 of them stepped on the lake and landed in front of Ji Xiaowu. What do you want? The maid hurriedly stood in front of Ji Xiaowu. A mere subordinate dares to be so presumptuous? One of the consecrators slapped the maid on the spot. The maid flew out and hit the ground with blood flowing from the corner of her mouth. Don't go too far. Ji Xiaowu was furious and hurriedly went forward to help the maid up. It was because he was kind-hearted, loyal, and did not have the arrogance of a young city lord. All the maids and guards in the city lord's mansion were very respectful to him. In short, he was deeply popular in the city lord's mansion. Too far. You're an orphan now. You have no backing. Even if we trample you under our feet, no one will care about you now. Another consecrator sneered. Ji Xiaowu clenched his fists and turned to look at the maid. He said in a deep voice, Hurry up and leave. Do as I say. It was still the same sentence. A tiger would be bullied by a dog. If it was in the past, how would these consecrators dare to be so presumptuous? The maid was reluctant to leave. Hurry! Ji Xiaowu shouted angrily. The maid's eyes trembled and turned to leave. However, another consecrator stood out and rushed in front of the maid. He grabbed the maid's head, and with a loud crack, the maid's head exploded on the spot. Her soul was directly crushed into pieces. Bastard! Ji Xiaowu's eyes turned red as he madly pounced on the consecrator. The consecrator's face was full of disdain as he kicked Ji Xiaowu. Ji Xiaowu immediately flew out with blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. He said contemptuously, "With your little cultivation, you dare to attack me. Aren't you courting death? You've already left the city, Lord's mansion. Why did you come back?" Ji Xiaowu roared. "We came back to help you, of course." The group of worshippers crossed their arms, their eyes filled with greed and ambition. "Help me?" Ji Xiaowu was stunned. How could these pieces of trash be so kind? "We can assist you in becoming the city lord of Green Wind City. Furthermore, we can go to Hanzong City and find Dong Hanzong to plead for you. But we have a condition. You must listen to everything we say." One of the consecrators said. "What? You want to use me as a puppet?" Ji Xiaowu was furious. "You're pretty smart. That's right. We just want you to be our puppet. On the surface, you are the city lord of Green Wind City. But in reality, we are the ones who hold great power. You only need to listen to us." The 10 of them chuckled. "Why go through so much trouble? Why don't you just kill me and become the city lord?" Ji Xiaowu roared. "We've thought about it, but there are too many of us, and none of us are willing to submit to the others. So we thought of you, but don't worry. Although you're just a puppet, we won't treat you unfairly. On the surface, we will still respect you." The 10 of them laughed. Ji Xiaowu clenched his fists tightly and said in a deep voice, "What if I say no? If you dare to say no, not only will we kill you, but we will also kill everyone in the city lord mansion. Anyway, Qin Feiyang and the other 2 have already entered the central dynasty. Moreover, they have a grudge with your father. At that time, we can announce to the public that they are the ones who massacred the city lord mansion." The 10 of them sneered. "You're despicable." Ji Xiaowu roared. Why didn't he see the true colors of these people before? "I'll give you 3 breaths to consider. 1, 2, 3. Just as the word 3 was uttered, Ji Xiaowu raised his head and glanced at the city lord mansion. He closed his eyes in pain and nodded. "I agree. That's more like it. Don't worry, we will definitely treat you well." The 10 of them laughed. Ji Xiaowu buried the anger and hatred in his heart and opened his eyes to look at the 10 of them. "But you have to promise me that you will treat everyone in the city lord mansion well." "Of course. After all, we are all family." One of the consecrators laughed. Looking at the smile on his face, Ji Xiaowu suddenly felt disgusted and nauseous. "I'll go and bury her." He desperately suppressed his killing intent and walked in front of the dead maid and murmured, "Don't worry, I won't let your death be in vain. I will definitely make these bastards pay the price." After saying that, he picked up the maid's corpse and strode towards the back of the mountain at the side. A few days later, the news that Qin Feiyang and the other 2 had entered the central dynasty had spread throughout the entire central dynasty. The city lord mansions of the various cities were assisting the death god army to track down the 3 of them. "Bastard, there's actually a traitor in the Kuin Peng Sea region." Kuin Peng Divine Island. The Kuin Peng Sea region that received the news was furious. Dong Qingyuan, the dragon god, also had a terrible look on his face. They desperately searched the Kuin Peng Sea region, but they didn't expect that the 3 of them had already left the sea region without anyone knowing and almost killed Dong Hanzong. Weren't they playing around with them like monkeys? At the same time, they also started to worry. If they could keep Qin Feiyang and the others in the Kuin Peng Sea region, even if a war broke out, the central dynasty people wouldn't be affected. But now, Qin Feiyang and the other 2 had successfully landed. Once a war broke out, they would definitely be at a disadvantage, because they had to take many things into consideration. When facing Qin Feiyang and the others, it was inevitable that they would be afraid. On the other hand, Qin Feiyang and the other 2, they didn't have to worry about anything and could attack and scrupulously. As expected by Qin Feiyang and the others, The emperor immediately arranged for people to go to the floating island to replace the old divine kingdom token and bring Dong Yiming back. In other words, the divine kingdom token in Qin Feiyang's hands was now useless. Moreover, after knowing what Qin Feiyang and the others had done in the Kunpengsi region and Hanzhong City during this period, Dong Yiming was also furious. He swore to kill the three of them. In a bustling city, 3 young men and a young woman entered a restaurant one after another. The restaurant was high-end and luxurious. The 3 of them gathered in a private room. They had outstanding appearances and extraordinary temperaments. This Dong Hanzong is really lucky. Not only did he not die, but the emperor thinks more highly of him now. The one who finished speaking was a strong young man, whose face was full of anger. These 3 people were Dong Tianchen, Dong Ping, and Dong Xan. Don't worry. Now that Qin Feiyang has his eyes on him, he will die sooner or later. Moreover, isn't Dong Tianxiang's death very satisfying? Dong Tianchen sneered. That's true. Dong Tianxiang is his second uncle, and he died in the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others. I think Dong Hanzong must be very upset now. Dong Xan chuckled. This Dong Tianxiang is usually arrogant and despotic. I have long disliked him. If it weren't for Dong Hanzong, I wouldn't have let him go. Killing intent flashed in Dong Ping's eyes. Let's not talk about this first. Dong Tianchen waved his hand and looked at Dong Xan. You should know why we asked you out, right? Yes. Dong Xan nodded. When Qin Feiyang was in the 4 great continents, we didn't care. But now they have entered the central dynasty. If they come to us and ask us to do something for them, we can't refuse. Dong Tianchen sighed. This is also the problem I am worried about. With their means, they can find us in minutes if they want. Now that the emperor is not in the divine kingdom, no one can help us break the blood oath. I really don't know how to face Qin Feiyang and the others. Dong Xan's face was filled with helplessness. Dong Ping frowned. Speaking of which, they have been in the central dynasty for so many days. Why haven't they come to us yet? Could it be that we are no longer valuable? Isn't that better? I hope they never come to us. Dong Tianchen said. That's impossible. They will come to us sooner or later. Dong Xan shook her head. Whether it was their strength or their family's influence, they were all very valuable. Qin Feiyang and the others would not let them go so easily. Why don't we take the initiative to find them? See if there is any hope of getting them to break the blood oath? Dong Ping pondered for a while and said, Are you an idiot? I can't even avoid them. Why would I take the initiative to find them? Dong Xan looked at Dong Ping with disdain. She really didn't know what this person was thinking. Dong Ping smiled embarrassedly. I want to see if there is anything we can use to exchange. Exchange? Dong Xan was stunned. This method was worth a try. But what did Qin Feiyang and the others need? An ultimate inheritance? What a joke. Did Qin Feiyang lack inheritances? Soul line crystal vein? These things were not worthy of Qin Feiyang and the others' attention. A dominator divine weapon? The other party controlled an independent small world. Wouldn't it be easy for them to create a dominator divine weapon? No matter how they thought about it, the 3 of them couldn't think of anything that could pique Qin Feiyang's interest. Why don't we steal the emperor's sword and give it to them? Dong Ping suddenly said. He would not stop until he shocked everyone to death. Dong Tianchen and Dong Xan were so scared that their faces turned pale. Are you crazy? Dong Tianchen fiercely knocked on Dong Ping's forehead and said angrily, Aren't you leading us to our deaths? How dare you steal the Dominator Divine, weapon of an emperor? Ha! Dong Ping laughed and rubbed his forehead. I'm just saying. You can't even say it. Dong Tianchen glared at him. After a while his eyes flashed and said, I think we should start with Dong Hanzong. Dong Hanzong, Dong Ping, and Dong Xan fell into deep thought. Qin Feiyang and the others didn't have a good impression of Dong Hanzong, and this time Dong Hanzong set a trap for them and almost killed them. I think with Qin Feiyang and the others' personalities, they won't let it go. So, starting with Dong Hanzong should be the most effective and direct way. Dong Tianqin said. I agree. In any case, Dong Hanzong is our mortal enemy. Let's join forces with Qin Feiyang and get rid of him. Dong Xian nodded. If Qin Feiyang hadn't come to save her and Dong Ping, they might have become Dong Hanzong's puppets. Okay, let's do it. Dong Ping also nodded straightforwardly. Although they were all from the Central Dynasty, he only hated Dong Hanzong. End of chapter. Chapter 44-48. At the same time, in front of the entrance of a valley, 4 figures stood side by side. The entrance of this valley was very narrow. It looked like a skull, like a devil bearing its fangs, waiting for its prey to come to its door. The 4 were Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, the mysterious young man, and the Sea Lion King. This is the Myriad Demons Valley that the inner demons mentioned. The white-eyed wolf scanned the valley. Apart from the terrifying appearance of the entrance, there was nothing different inside. Just like other places, there were mountains and rivers, and the scenery was beautiful. Let's split up here, the mysterious young man said. Huh. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf turned to look at the mysterious young man. They were caught off guard. Why did he want to leave again? After all, they entered the divine kingdom together. Couldn't they share weal and woe together? Don't flatter yourself. Although I agreed to come to the divine kingdom with you, I didn't say that I would help you deal with the divine kingdom. I'm just a wild crane, free and unrestrained. No one can tie me down. The mysterious young man looked at the 2 and yawned. When the Sea Lion King heard this, he was about to cry. He envied this young man's life. Unlike him, he was dragged onto this pirate ship and couldn't escape even if he wanted to. No, he didn't dare to run now, because once he left Qin Feiyang and the others, he would die in the hands of the Death God Army. Now, the Death God Army was not only tracking Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and the Golden-Winged Wolf King. They were also hunting him, the traitor. Traitor, he was really wronged. To put it in layman's terms, he was forced to become a prostitute. What's the situation? The mysterious young man looked at the Sea Lion King. Big brother, you are Qin Feiyang's ancestor, right? Please save me. I really don't want to fool around with them. I'm still young and I haven't had enough fun. The Sea Lion Beast King looked at the mysterious young man with a look of despair and grief. The young man was stunned. Why was he so pitiful? To think that I'm a talented man with a great future. How can I go astray like this? Big brother, you are my big brother. The Sea Lion Demon King hugged the young man's leg with tears and snot running down his face. Qin Feiyang and the ingrates' mouths twitched. Astray? Big brother? The corner of the young man's mouth twitched. He kicked the Sea Lion Demon King away and said angrily, "Don't get your snot and saliva on me." The youth was speechless to the extreme. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf and said, "How deranged are the 2 of you to actually force a fiend king into such a state?" I think he is going crazy. Who forced him? It's obvious that he's too weak. Besides, if we didn't show mercy, he would be like the other monster kings, deprived of his ultimate meaning and suppressed in the soul-sealing valley. The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. Qin Feiyang looked at the Sea Lion King with a dark face. "Don't ruin our reputation. We have already given you your freedom. It's you who refuse to leave. Do I dare to leave?" You've already forced me to this point. Neptune looked aggrieved. The white-eyed wolf looked at him with disdain and said to the young man, "See, he's the one who's useless." The young man's mouth twitched. He really sympathized with the Monster King's experience. In fact, this was the reason why he had been keeping a distance from Qin Feiyang and the others. Nothing good would come out of hanging out with these guys. Take your time and enjoy it. The young man gloated at the Sea Lion King and turned to leave without looking back. Suddenly he said, "You too, stop messing around. I really don't have much origin power left." Oh. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf rolled their eyes when they heard this. He had said the same thing back in the Voidlands. At that time, the young man said that there was only one origin power, but what happened? He revealed his origin power again and again, and this time he revealed a large amount of origin power. So, the young man's words were just farts. If you believed him, you would be really stupid. "Big brother, don't go!" The Sea Lion King stretched out his hand and looked at the young man's back, shouting in despair. How was this enjoyment? Separation was torture. Still pretending. The white-eyed wolf's veins bulged as he stepped forward and kicked. The word shameless was a perfect match for this guy. The Sea Lion King quickly jumped up and dodged the white-eyed wolf's kick, laughing dryly. "Isn't this too boring? So I found some fun for myself. But then again, Boss Qin, this ancestor of yours seems to be a bit cold to you." The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. What ancestor? There was no way to find the relationship between them. Then, he raised his head and looked at the Thousand Devils Valley. Forbidden area? Was it that scary? However, there was indeed no living creature in the valley. It was as silent as death. The Sea Lion King looked at the Thousand Devils Valley and said seriously, "I know about the Thousand Devils Valley. We'd better not go in." "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at him suspiciously. It is said that the Thousand Devils Valley is shrouded in an evil force all year round. These evil forces are invisible and colorless, invisible to the naked eye. From the outside of the Thousand Devils Valley, there is no abnormality at all. But when you enter the Thousand Devils Valley, you will find that the evil forces are everywhere. The Sea Lion King said, "Evil forces." Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. No wonder the inner demons said that this would be a lunatic's paradise. The lunatic was the god of all evil, controlling all the evil in the world. The evil forces here. How scary is it? The white-eyed wolf looked at the Sea Lion King curiously. Very scary. Even a Paragon Dominator Realm expert can be swallowed in minutes. Even an expert with the will of the heavens will be destroyed if they stay in the Thousand Devils Valley for a long time. The Sea Lion King said, "So powerful? Go in and try." The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. The Sea Lion King was shocked and hurriedly took a few steps back, saying angrily, "Why don't you go in?" "You are our little follower. If there is danger, you will definitely go first." The white-eyed wolf chuckled. "Even a little follower has dignity, okay?" The Sea Lion King said angrily, "Do you want dignity, or do you want your life? Choose for yourself." The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth, his eyes full of a smirk. The Sea Lion King flew into a rage. On what basis? Should a little follower take the risk? No. When did this king become their little follower? Don't lead me astray. I'm about to go astray. Hurry up. The ingrate grabbed the Sea Lion Demon King's arm and threw him in when he was unprepared. Bastard, I will not let you go even if I become a ghost. At that moment, the Sea Lion Demon King roared in horror and landed in the canyon. Little Qin Zi, why are these beasts with you all like this? No wonder people say that birds of a feather flock together. The white-eyed wolf despised him. You are talking about yourself, right? The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched nonstop. It was true. None of them made him worry. Whoosh! Not long after, the Sea Lion King hurriedly ran out again, his face full of fear. And as soon as he came out, he immediately sat cross-legged on the ground, urging the power of law to refine the evil power in his body. Is it that exaggerated? Qin Feiyang and the Sea Lion King looked at each other and also tentatively stepped out of the Myriad Demons Valley. Sure enough, as soon as they stepped into the Myriad Demons Valley, they felt an extremely terrifying evil power surging from all directions. And it was pervasive, gradually drilling into their bodies, crazily devouring their divine power, soul, and power of law. Even their flesh and blood were rotting away. Making a prompt decision, Qin Feiyang activated the power of law to refine the evil power in his body. However, he was shocked to find that even the power of law that contained the will of heaven was difficult to refine. That's right. Although he could refine it, the speed was quite slow. This was the same situation as what he encountered in the Valley of the Underworld King's Hell. But one had to know, the current Qin Feiyang was no longer the same as before. Not to mention the evil power of the Underworld King's Hell. Even the Een Demon power of the Een Demon land was no longer a threat to him. After all, he now controlled 2 wills of heaven. However, at this moment, the evil power of the Myriad Demons Valley could bring him such a great sense of crisis. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the evil power here was. It's nothing. Suddenly, a very annoying voice sounded. Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at the white-eyed wolf and saw that the white-eyed wolf was no longer as shocked as before, and his face was indifferent. What the hell? This made Qin Feiyang stunned. The Sea Lion King, who was sitting cross-legged outside, looked at this scene and was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. Why was this golden-winged wolf king not affected? It must be fake. Sure enough, the evil power in the world is no threat to me. The white-eyed wolf smiled proudly at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and quickly left the Myriad Demons Valley, using the power of life and death to refine the evil power in his body. Don't say it. This was different. The power of the law of life and death was several times stronger than the power of the strongest law. Boss Qin, what's going on? Why is he not afraid of the evil power here? The Sea Lion King looked at the high-spirited and proud white-eyed wolf in the valley, his face full of surprise. I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The white-eyed wolf had never been very interested in the evil power. In the past, in the Underworld King's Hell, and later in the Een Demon land, it didn't affect him much. Monster! The Sea Lion King exclaimed. Not long after, Qin Feiyang also refined the evil power in his body. Looking at the Sea Lion King, who was still refining, he was speechless. Your speed is too slow. Do you think everyone is like you? Each and every one of you is abnormal. The Sea Lion King looked unhappy. This Myriad Demons Valley was indeed a forbidden area. Judging from the current situation, even if he mastered the will of the heavens, he could only stay in the Myriad Demons Valley for half an hour at most. Once half an hour was up, if he didn't leave the Myriad Demons Valley, he would definitely die. End of this chapter. Chapter 44-49. Do you want me to help you? The white-eyed wolf walked out proudly and looked at the Sea Lion Demon King. No, the Sea Lion Demon King shook his head. As a demon king, he must have a backbone. Haha, not bad, very ambitious. The white-eyed wolf laughed and turned to look at Qin Feiyang, asking, Little madman should have almost recovered. That depends on whether he went to find my wife. Qin Feiyang smiled. Madman was seriously injured this time. Not only was his physical body destroyed, but even his divine soul was only left with a wisp. If he relied on himself to repair it, it would definitely be impossible without hundreds of thousands of years. But it was different with the Eye of Life. It could be done in minutes. And suddenly, the white-eyed wolf turned to look at the mountains behind him, killing intent flashing in his eyes. Qin Feiyang was taken aback and immediately released his divine sense, shrouding the endless mountains and rivers. At that moment, everything was clear in his eyes. At this moment, there were many fierce beasts lurking in the dark, staring at them. There was even a beast in human form that had already taken out a sound transmission stone and was sending messages. "Not good, they have found us, run." Feeling Qin Feiyang's divine sense, a burly man hiding on the top of a mountain roared. This burly man was also a beast in human form. Following the burly man's roar, the nearby ferocious beasts immediately fled in fear. Sure enough, everyone in the Central Dynasty, every beast is the Emperor's spy. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. Then, do we still have to enter the Thousand Devil Valley? The white-eyed wolf frowned. If they entered the Thousand Devil Valley now, the Emperor would definitely lead the Death God army to encircle the Thousand Devil Valley. One had to know. The Emperor had the origin power in his hands. Others might be afraid of the evil power of the Thousand Devil Valley, but the Emperor was definitely not afraid. At that time, they would definitely be surrounded again, and it might be even more terrifying than when they were in Hanzhong City, because Dong Qingyuan must have already brought the other teams back to support. I can't hide in the Myriad Demons Valley any longer. Let's find a place to change our appearance first. As long as no one sees our changed appearances, they won't be able to recognize us even if we stand in front of them. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he turned around to look at the Myriad Devil's Valley. He smiled and said, "But this place is really not bad. If Senior Brother can absorb all the evil energy here, the all-evil sword will definitely grow to a terrifying level." The white-eyed wolf nodded. The power of the all-evil sword depended on how much evil energy it could absorb. In fact, it was just like Qin Feiyang's slaughter domain. The more blood it absorbed, the stronger the slaughter domain became. However, Qin Feiyang had not activated the slaughter domain for a long time. So much so that the people of the Divine Kingdom did not know that he had such a trick up his sleeve. But now, where they were going had really become the key. After all, they didn't know much about the Central Dynasty. Isn't the most dangerous place the safest place? We might as well go to Green Wind City. The white-eyed wolf's eyes flashed, and he laughed. Green Wind City. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. Let's go find Ji Xiaowu and see if he has lived up to Little Madman's expectations. The white-eyed wolf said. Qin Feiyang laughed and said, "That's a good idea. When the time comes, we can pretend to be that kid's consecrator. Maybe we will have a chance to get close to Dong Hanzhong." "Then let's do that." The white-eyed wolf waved his hand and opened a space-time tunnel. Green Wind City. City Lord's mansion, backyard. In a pavilion, a space-time tunnel appeared in the hall. Qin Feiyang and the other two walked out silently. This backyard was usually used to entertain VIPs, so it was usually empty. The Sea Lion King looked at the white-eyed wolf with a bitter face and said, "Boss Wolf, you should help me absorb the evil energy in my body. Don't you have a backbone?" The white-eyed wolf sneered. In front of the two bosses, "What's the point of having a backbone?" The Sea Lion King smiled flatteringly. The white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched. His skin was really thick. He then raised his hand and grabbed the Sea Lion King's arm. At that moment, the white-eyed wolf's palm seemed to have turned into a man-eating monster. The evil energy in the Sea Lion King's body immediately rushed into his palm. In just a few blinks of the eye, the evil energy in the Sea Lion King's body was completely absorbed. The Sea Lion King's body became light and finally got rid of this embarrassing situation. He also sincerely admired the white-eyed wolf's methods. Such a terrifying evil energy was absorbed into his body, but nothing happened to him at all. If this was not a monster, then what was it? Change your appearance. Qin Feiyang took out 3 illusory form pills. Qin Feiyang turned into a middle-aged man with a scar on his face. He was 2 meters tall and looked a little fierce. The white-eyed wolf turned into a gentle middle-aged man. It was completely different from his previous temperament. As for the Sea Lion King, he turned into a blond old man with a ruddy face and full of energy. I say, why don't you just leave? Look at you now. Even I can't recognize your real body. Qin Feiyang looked at the Sea Lion Beast King and said with a smile, No, it's impossible for me to maintain this appearance for the rest of my life. The Sea Lion King shook his head. To a demon king, changing his appearance and concealing his identity was a humiliation. Didn't you know that? Are you planning to rely on us for the rest of your life? The white-eyed wolf's face was dark, who kept clamoring to leave. Now that he had a chance, he actually didn't want to leave. This king is a monster king with a conscience. You gave me 2 inheritances, so I must repay your kindness. The Sea Lion King said in a serious tone, You win. The white-eyed wolf was powerless. In terms of face, he really couldn't win against this person. I really didn't expect that our young city lord would directly become the city lord of Green Wind City. It's really difficult to be young. Suddenly, a woman's voice came from outside. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 were taken aback. Ji Xiaowu had already become the city lord of Green Wind City. The footsteps were getting closer and closer. It was not the footsteps of a person. Moreover, they seemed to have come for their loft. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he activated the concealment technique. The 3 left and hid in the void. Soon, the door was pushed open, and 3 maids came in one after another. It turned out that they were here to clean the courtyard regularly. A place like this to entertain distinguished guests indeed needs to be cleaned frequently because you don't know when there will be distinguished guests coming, so you must always keep it clean and tidy. One of the maids walked to the tea table and carefully wiped it. She sighed and said, Young city lord is indeed very capable and treats us servants very well. But I can't figure out why those 10 consecrators came back. I've been wondering about this too. I heard that after offending Dong Tianxiang, these 10 consecrators were afraid that Dong Hanzong would come to trouble them, so they all ran away. But now, the old city lord is dead and they came back. The point is, these 10 people have done such a terrible thing, but the young city lord still accepts them. I really can't figure out what the young city lord is doing. People like them who are greedy for life and afraid of death should be driven out directly. Another maid chimed in. Those 10 consecrators left? No wonder I didn't see them outside the Star River. The white-eyed wolf muttered. That's not the point. The point is they are back now, and Ji Xiaowu even accepted them. There is a problem here, but it seems that Ji Xiaowu has a good reputation. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. Alas! Suddenly, the 3rd maid sighed, focusing on the work in her hands, and said, You don't understand. The young city lord's father and grandfather were both killed, and the young city lord's cultivation is too weak, so he needs someone to assist him. That's true. It's the young city lord's bad luck. Why did he meet Qin Feiyang and the others? Not only did he lose his family, but he also offended Dong Hanzong. If it weren't for the young city lord being so good to us, I might have left the city lord's mansion by now. The 2 maids said, Now the whole city is searching for Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, Golden Winged Wolf King, and Sea Lion Demon King. Even if we leave the city lord's mansion, we may not be safe. The 3 maids seemed to be chatting, completely unaware of Qin Feiyang and the other 2. Let's go find Ji Xiaowu. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while. An inexplicable light flashed in his eyes, and then he left the attic silently with the white-eyed wolf and Sea Lion Demon King. After a while, they found Ji Xiaowu's residence. It was not far from the backyard, which was also an independent courtyard. Outside the courtyard, there were 4 guards, standing upright, protecting Ji Xiaowu's safety. At this moment, Ji Xiaowu was sitting alone in the pavilion in the courtyard, with more than a dozen empty wine jars scattered on the ground. He was lying on the stone table, reeking of alcohol and holding a wine jar in his hand, looking extremely dispirited. "What's going on?" "He's dead drunk." The white-eyed wolf frowned. Shouldn't he be very happy to become the city lord at such a young age? Facing the sadness of the death of his family, what's the joy of becoming the city lord? Sea Lion Demon King shook his head and sighed. No, this Ji Xiao is a relatively strong and responsible person. Since he has become the city lord of Green Wind City, he will definitely do his best. Even if there is sadness in his heart, he will try his best to suppress it. In other words, he can't be drunk here because of the death of Ji Daxiong and Ji Changming. Look at his eyes carefully. He is now like a walking corpse that has lost his vitality and hope. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. There must be something fishy about this. When the white-eyed wolf and Sea Lion Demon King heard this, they carefully looked at Ji Xiao's eyes and found that it was true. Despair, helplessness, and dead silence. This was completely different from the Ji Xiao they first saw. The three of them looked at each other, quietly entered the pavilion, and looked at Ji Xiao up close. Not only did he reek of alcohol, but his hair was also a mess and there was no vitality at all. He was like a living corpse. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.